On today's episode of The Unwritten Rule, Mizzou football is 5-0. We'll cut to ourselves on Saturday for that recap. Some of you guys have probably already seen it, but we'll have that. Then we'll come back. We're going to break down a couple of recruiting pickups for Mizzou football and men's basketball. Nice development there for Dennis Gates, just continuing to absolutely dominate on the recruiting trail. We'll do quick hits, and then we're going to finish with our Week 5 SEC tier list. A lot went down in the SEC this weekend. It was a fun one. In addition to Mizzou's game against Vandy. So it should be a good tier list this week and a great show to get your week going. And with that, the Unwritten Rule starts right now.
Marcel, where are you going with that disc? You are not putting that on again. Marcel, okay, if you press that button, you are in very, very big trouble.
Attention. Everybody stop what you're doing. It's time for The Unwritten Rule, a Mizzou sports podcast brought to you by the Believe Network. Alongside Peyton Haverman and Kenny Van Doren. Here is your host, Jack Knowlton.
Welcome back to The Unwritten Rule. Today is Monday, October 2nd. And here's us on Saturday. Okay. Here we are on Saturday for you guys. Mizzou football is 5-0, Peyton and Kenny. The Tigers did it. They survived the construction site trap game. I know I was tweeting a little bit before it. There was a lot of discourse related to the construction, especially with those who were there in attendance to cover this game, which that was fun to see. But getting into it, first and foremost, it was a 38-21 win, and Mizzou football is now 5-0. They survive, and now we can finally have the reality that I think I've been trying to manifest, at least on this show, for weeks now, which is going into this LSU game now 5-0. So very, very exciting stuff. We're going to dive into all of it, but real quick to do the Bet Online read. So quick word from the old sponsor, Bet Online. Football is back. Bet Online is your number one information source for all your sports wagering info with all the up-to-minute stats, news, scores, and matchup breakdowns. Get the latest game odds, spreads, and totals from the NFL and college football at your fingertips with BetOnline's real-time updates on statistics, news, and odds. I know we use them for our Best Beats of the Week segment, so it's very handy. From Week 1 all the way to the college football playoff and Super Bowl, BetOnline gives you access to the best football promotions and contests available anywhere online. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. And then remember to use our promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV. Believe to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, where the game starts. Okay, we have a bunch of specific talking points. This was an interesting game, I felt. I think we kind of all had the same take diving into it. But first impressions, Mizzou 38, Vanderbilt 21. Tigers are 5-0, and Mizzou fans, you can all breathe a comfortable sigh of relief. 2019 did not happen all over again.
Yeah, that's the main thing out of this. Mizzou's 5-0. There were a few hiccups along the way, but largely never really felt like Vanderbilt after the first quarter was going to be able to crawl back into this one. Again, the offense, it's just, even though they keep shooting themselves in the foot, the O-line with the penalties, they just find ways to put up crazy points. I mean, Brady Cook is just a completely different player than he was a year ago. He sees the field perfectly well, obviously made some history. We'll get into that in a little bit. Luther Burden has just emerged as an absolute game breaker. And they've gotten contributions from the other receivers as well. I mean, Mookie Cooper and Theo Wease both had nice days as well. Largely more positive than not. It wasn't perfect. Mizzou still has not played a perfect game this season, in my estimation. But even in spite of that, they're 5-0, and that is absolutely what you would have hoped for going into LSU. Even if they wind up not coming away with a win against LSU, I mean, this is an overwhelmingly positive so far this year.
Yeah, I think we were a little bit too cautious coming in this game, and I think we had every right to be, just based on Mizzou's history in all sports, especially football and basketball. We call it a Mizzou moment. There's something that happens. Kentucky last year, Auburn last year. We were just waiting for that one hiccup, that one small thing to just take a good season, a good game, and just really throw it down the drain. Coming to this one, it felt a lot like 2019. The big difference is not the same head coach. There's 4 players from that 2019 team on this 2023 team. there's a lot of different players that came and gone, 2 different quarterbacks in that time. And I think we just maybe overthought it a little bit. And I think that's okay. It's okay to overthink some of these games just based on the recent history of this Mizzou football team. We're seeing a very confident Brady Cook, a different guy. That you see this guy walking on the sidelines. It's not the same quarterback from last year. He believes in himself. He believes in his own players. He has a stronger offensive line. Like Peyton said, nothing's perfect. I mean, going to this week, and of course they won. They won big. There's a lot of things you can nitpick. You can look at a little bit more, and we'll get into all this right now. But this team looks just stronger than last year. And I think we don't have to, just sit back and be like, oh, they could lose a trap game. They could lose this game going on the road. Drinkwitz doesn't have the best record on the road. We got to give them credit, though. This Tigers team is doing it all, and they do have some hiccups, some things that they'll need to work on both sides of the ball. They've looked great through 5 games and one more game, and they've clinched a postseason play. And that's what the most important thing is about, any season. You want to extend it.
I think there were times in this game that felt like they could have turned into those Mizzou moments, like you guys both brought up, and yeah, the team was able to overcome them. And getting into it, it starts in a lot of those Mizzou moments, like we saw. The example that comes instantly to my mind. Sometimes it comes with the officials. We saw that with the Kentucky game. It literally forced a rule change last year after that punting incident. And I don't want to stick on this too long because I think there were a lot of good things, especially that Missouri did, to dive into. But we got to talk about it, gentlemen. The refereeing in this game was strange. There was, you guys can go off on the other stuff, but the two that come to my mind, there was the targeting call that they double reviewed it and then didn't call targeting on the guy. And the one that really got me was the first touchdown where they said Luther didn't get in. Mizzou was just tried to get to the line, hurry, and sneak Brady Cook in. They do that. And then the refs go back and say, no, we wanted to run a review. And that play gets negated. I mean, that had felt like I went through all the hypotheticals. Like, think about if that was a third down in the fourth quarter and it's a 1-score game, and then you get the first down, but no, you don't, because the refs wanted to review. Like, all sorts of craziness. You guys can mention some of the other stuff, and then we can move on. But there was some strange behavior from the officials in the stripes today.
Yeah, I mean, they scored 3 touchdowns and got 7 points for it. That's kind of what it was. I mean, it was a bit funky. I mean, just the constant announcements that Luther Burden is identifying as number 47 on the punt return.
Yeah.
Just a lot of weird things that I'm not used to seeing. It really did, since it was so early and Mizzou kind of handled their own business. It became a small thing. But I mean, I will say this of officiating, the penalties for Mizzou, and I think largely almost all of them were fair enough calls. That last hold on Javon Foster I thought was a bit ticky-tack, but it has been kind of the one thing that has really held Mizzou back in a lot of instances this year, especially on the O-line. The O-line, the last few weeks, it feels like, when they have not been committing penalties, they have really done a great job, especially in pass protection. Brady Cook has not been under pressure a whole lot. I can't even think of a time. Did he get sacked today? I don't think he did. It's not perfect in the run blocking, but it looks better than it was for a lot of times last year. But they got to clean up the penalties. I mean, Cameron Johnson in particular. I know in an ideal world, Mizzou might have Marcellus Johnson back out at right guard. They probably wanted to do that today. He was active and suited up, but probably not at 100%, so no need to push it. But yeah, Mizzou's got to clean up the penalties. Even just like cutting the procedural ones, like just stop with the false starts, man. Like that is just stuff that will really. It hasn't doomed them yet. Obviously, they're still 5-0 in spite of doing all these things, and still can clean it up. But if it doesn't change, I mean, there is going to be a point later on in the year that it's probably going to cost you big time.
I don't think I've really seen this before. Yeah, we've seen it before. I don't see it as often that you score a touchdown and then they want to review the play that was before that. And yeah. I think it's impressive by Mizzou that those 2 stops, you score the touchdown, it's down at the 1. You score the touchdown again, they're going to review the previous play, and then you score a touchdown right after. I mean, it didn't really kill the momentum. Of course, Cody Schrader getting to the edge is, one of the best running plays they can do, especially just at the 1 yard line. He's going to be faster than whoever's going to be on the outside for the defense. And I like that you brought up those kind of the run blocking issues over the offensive line, kind of segueing into that, Peyton, because I remember there were 2 plays right at the snap, like the Vanderbilt defense. I think it might've been like 3rd and 5 or 2nd and 5. And Brady Cook it was just QB draw right away. He was going to run to the outside. He was going to go for the play. Vanderbilt knew right away, and they just ran straight through, and they just pushed him out of bounds. Like there was just nothing there. I mean, there's definitely some issues, and that holding play at the end that negated a big run for Cody Schrader, who looked to have a little bit of a stronger second half like last week. Very unfortunate. Would have made his numbers look a lot better than they did with only 3.8 per carry. But overall, I mean, it's looking a little bit better. And this offensive line, there's a lot of other guys that can step up, move in. I think Cameron Johnson was the one at the end when there was a little bit of a scuffle. I think he might have been throwing up the W. I don't know if you guys watched until the end of that, but there was a little scuffle at the end. I don't know.
I missed that.
I think it was Cameron Johnson.
He threw up
I did not see who, but yeah. I don't know.
It was one of the offensive linemen.
Sure.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, I think the keys that to see if I may try to summarize what both of you are saying is the key in all of this is that they overcame these moments, right? Like they found a way. It was very refreshing to hear from the commentators while I was watching this game, like when Vanderbilt scored, and we'll get to their touchdown that made it 24-14. But when they scored that, like Missouri went out and punched them right back in the mouth. They responded. They found a way to respond to a little adversity in a game when when that point hit, you were getting a little bit worried that, there's 9 minutes left in the fourth quarter. If they get a quick 3 and out, Vanderbilt can make this a real ball game. And Missouri never really let that be the case, despite some of the penalty issues, despite some of the weirdness with the refs, and some of those offensive line struggles, like you mentioned. So let's get into the people that made that happen this afternoon for Missouri. And I think it's fitting, as it has been for almost every game so far this year, to start with those guys on the outside that are making Brady Cook what I was going to say takes too much respect away from Brady Cook. He looks phenomenal. We'll get to him, but some of these playmakers that he has help a lot. And it was really funny. The 3 of us, along with some of our other fellow Mizzou cohorts, were kind of discussing, especially in the first half, we were like, this is the Theo Wease game. Theo Wease, 118 yards, 10 catches, a touchdown. And we were just like, wow, it's so nice that they can have this compliment to Luther Burden. And when Burden's getting bottled up, we saw some plays, at least I did, when, he would get a ball short and Vanderbilt was making some good tackles, kind of bottling him as much as they could a little bit. Luther Burden still winds up with 140 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he managed to usurp somehow the guy who we had dubbed, this is his kind of game. But just overall, 2 guys that looked phenomenal. And to start with Theo Wease, what an awesome thing to see from the Oklahoma transfer. Definitely flashed everything we knew he had today.
Yeah, Theo Wease, he's been good for sure since he's gotten here. But he really turned it up and was great today. For the first half, he was the best receiver Mizzou had. Luther Burden was still great, but Theo Wease really was kind of stealing the show early on. And that's a good thing, by the way. It takes a lot of the focus and burden, pun intended, off of Luther.
Burden.
Off of Luther to have to go out and drop 140 yards a game. Because even though he did do that today, he didn't necessarily have to do that in the first half. Theo Wease really took a lot of the attention away, which opened him up more in the second half. I also want to shout out Mookie Cooper. Didn't have eye-popping numbers, but very reliable wide receiver 3. He looks like just a more complete receiver this year. And I was texting Kenny about this a couple weeks ago. Drinkwitz has really, I think, no other position on the team under Drinkwitz has really, the growth of the position been more evident than receiver. You get Mookie Cooper a couple years ago. Obviously, when you get a transfer like that, you're expecting instant impact. But it took a little time for Mookie Cooper to kind of grow. And now, he's a perfect fit for this offense. And he's giving you very, very valuable snaps. Theo Wease, a perfect complement to Luther Burden. And then Luther Burden is Luther Burden. And also Marquise Johnson, game-breaking speed. we're going to miss Jacob
He's
Peeler.
really good.
Jacob Peeler, nasty wideouts. These guys just keep popping up. This is a good receiver room.
Yeah, Mookie Cooper, 56 yards on 5 receptions. And we talked about it a little bit the last couple of weeks. He's a different receiver than he was 2 years ago. We saw the 4 stars coming in from Ohio State in the transfer portal. We all got our minds going like, oh, this guy's going to be it. Like, this is our Luther Burden before we had Luther Burden, just because he was this prolific wide receiver that could do multiple things. Really weren't seeing much from him, especially last year. I think he led Mizzou in receiving yards twice last season, was really stepping up when injuries were happening, especially at the slot position. And right now he looks great at the wide receiver 3. And the thing about Marquise Johnson is that he's so fast. And there are 2 good articles if you want to read a little bit more about how fast he is and just the impact he had, not even just as a football player, but track and field as well. That's why he didn't come to Mizzou early. He was finishing out his track career in Houston at Dickinson High School. There's 2 articles, one in the Columbia Missourian and one in the Columbia Daily Tribune. You should check out if you want to learn a little bit more on him. One thing I missed from this receiving core, tight end core, is that Brett Norfleet caught a pass. I don't remember when
I was going to shout that out.
I
remember.
Okay.
Brett Norfleet podcast. So that was huge.
I will say this about Brett Norfleet. While he did have the catch, and I think he definitely has the highest ceiling as a receiver out of the tight end room, he has got to be a better blocker. I mean, he totally, in the first half, the first drive for Mizzou when they settled for a field goal, that Brady Cook QB keeper out wide is a touchdown if he doesn't whiff on his block. But he did. And Tyler Stevens, the very next play, whiffed on a block as well. So the tight end room outside of Jordan Harris needs to step up in that department. But again, it wasn't perfect. It was still more than enough to get a win.
I'm glad you brought up Jordan Harris too, because I think it was one of the rushing plays, like right at maybe on the 2-yard line, that he was lined up almost as a fullback. Like he was back there.
They like to do that.
He's looked good. I mean, he's a true freshman, and that's another guy. If you can go find an article on Jordan Harris, he didn't start playing football until junior or senior year of high school, or in the middle of his high school career. He was a basketball player. He was a big dude, and he's really come around.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't you write that?
I don't know if I wrote that article, but I have written stuff about Jordan Harris.
Yeah.
Had a good connection with him when he was there. It was actually between Vandy and Mizzou. Those were his top 2. And I actually thought he was going to go to Vandy because I thought he would get more playing time. Mizzou saw a lot in him, and the defensive coaches were recruiting him. I know that they do have some connections down there in Arkansas. He's from Pine Bluff. Other than that, I mean, he's been great. I mean, that's one of the biggest pickups there, and I think he graded out as a 4-star at the end of the day, which is really cool to see.
He got a ton of high marks for his blocking last week against Memphis when Norfleet was out, and that's a good thing to have. Norfleet can be more of a receiver. Harris can be more of the blocker. I think that's a good blend to have.
Yeah, a good one too. Because this is a team that has a history of great tight ends, so it's good to see that slowly but surely they're probably getting back to that. But okay, I'm gonna flash to a specific moment because I think this did become kind of a talking point, and obviously the game ended up being how it was, but the Drinkwitz antics with the timeouts and his trying to go down the field and get another score at the end of the first half. How do we feel about that? Because we make these jokes all the time about conservative Drinkwitz and punting when we don't think he should sometimes, and maybe running out the clock at halftime. But he seemed like he wanted to take a shot there, and a little bit weird use of his timeouts. But I'm curious what y'all's take on that was. A little bit different to see.
I get the mindset for him because his offense has been so good and so explosive this year. It made sense to me, and initially I didn't get it, but the way he used his first 2 timeouts in the first half, I actually think, looking back, makes sense. You want to make sure you can have one to play with for the last drive. When you get a couple plays, you can keep the middle of the field option open. The problem is he used his last timeout after Nate Pete got a huge run. It was literally exactly what you could have wanted out of that play, and got out of bounds. I don't understand why the timeout was used there. Even if you don't have the play really set up, it might be a better option to take the delay of game. because that took away any option you had of being able to attack the middle of the field. Maybe you can pick up 15 to 20 yards over the middle of the Luther Burden or something. At least give yourself a shot at a field goal. You kind of took that away, forced you to either take a Hail Mary or work the sidelines. It just made you too one-dimensional. So if he didn't use the last time out there, I think it was going to be perfect, but I think he kind of botched that one at the end there.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Peyton. I think there were 6 seconds on the clock after the run too,
Yeah,
and
there was.
You don't have enough time to spike it after that. Like, there's no other way to stop it at
No.
all. It's either you're going to score or you're not, and that's all you got. You're not going to kick the field goal.
Or an absolute perfect sideline play, which is very
exactly. Yeah, and I don't even think you'd get into the range. We're not going to diss Mevis's range after what we saw with the 61-yard field goal. But it's just another. I mean, I think he's, it was a smart play. If you score there, you double down. You're going into the second half. You have the ball. You score again. You're up big. I mean, that's 2 more scores to be up on Vanderbilt. Just more cushion going into the third and fourth quarters, which they played a good third quarter. Fourth quarter, first half of the fourth quarter was really shaky. It looked like Vanderbilt was going to make some moves there, and they finished it off at the end. It just kind of seems like Drinkwitz is kind of playing a little cute. He's trying to work the clock, manipulate time, and it just really hasn't worked out in his favor. We understand what he's doing. We understand it at the K-State game. He called that timeout with the clock stopping inside 2 minutes when you get the first down. Maybe just a thing he just wasn't thinking, because there is the rule change. But at the same time, it's just like these 2 times. We just hope it doesn't come back to bite him down the road. He played well. You won both games. The outcome was the same there. It's just you don't want this to hurt you down the road.
End of the day, this was. I was just gonna say this is a 3-point play, but like Kenny said, you do got to start to get this right, because later on it will really matter, and it almost cost them against K-State. It really did. It took an SEC record kick to make sure that didn't matter. And I think he got closer to getting it right today, but that last time out, I just don't understand what was happening there. Maybe there's a good reason for it. Maybe Cook couldn't hear him, couldn't hear the play. But yeah, it was a little disappointing.
But again, to your point, you could take the delay of game there. And then it led to one of those almost Mizzou moments where they then throw a meaningless check down that I forget who caught it, but fumbled, and Vanderbilt recovered, and my heart dropped to my stomach because I just had visions of somehow that ending in a scoop and score heading into halftime for Vandy. So, speaking of moments that make your heart drop, or maybe, depending on the situation, I must have missed this because I know he did this earlier. I forget which game, but he did this earlier in the season. Did Connor Tollison botch another snap with Brady Cook?
He botched 2 today. This one was way more costly. I think it was either right at the end of the fourth or right at the end of the third or right at the beginning of the fourth. It was late. It was in the second half. And Mizzou, it was back-to-back drives, and it was a little frustrating. They get on the plus side of the field to Vandy. They have second and short both times. They have negative yard run plays, which totally throws the momentum off. The first time Mizzou doesn't convert on third down, Cook throws it a little behind Burden. They punt it, which I didn't like, but they got an interception out of it, so it didn't really matter. This one, though, Drinkwitz decides to go for it, I think wisely. It was a 4th and 4. They really have not been able to stop Brady Cook a lot of the day. I like that call, and I hope Drinkwitz isn't scared off doing it. But again, they come to the line of scrimmage. Cook reads the defense. They do the check over to the sideline, and just for whatever reason, Connor Tollison thinks he calls for the ball, and he snaps it. Cook is not even looking at him. He's looking towards the sideline, bounces off Cook onto the ground. Cook tries to make something happen out of it. Nothing happens. I believe it led to a Vanderbilt touchdown. So that has happened a few times for Connor Tollison, and he has improved greatly blocking-wise, needs to improve center-wise now. I mean, this is stuff that you cannot have happen at crucial moments of the game.
Yeah. Okay. So it's strange because I know they do that weird cadence thing, which I guess is, I don't know how really advanced that is. And I agree with you, Peyton, and that's a big thing for Peyton to say, especially Connor Tollison improving in the block game. But I think that is evident. And that's the basics that need to be corrected.
And one of the things that I saw like after the play is that Cook, he called Connor Tolson out. You saw him like yell towards him, and that's what I'm saying. It's a different Cook. He's more of a leader. Of course, he was voted captain last year, voted captain this year, but he's just more vocal. He's just showing more emotion, and he's not going to drag his center down. He's not going to call him out in the press conference or anything like that. That's not even Brady Cook's character, but he's going to get on his guys. He's going to tell them like, get on this. I mean, this is something that you need to focus on. And I actually just had one quick quote that just came from the press conference that I just wanted to talk about that Brady Cook said. It's about Marquise Johnson. We talked about him a little bit. This last thing we could say, it's so hard to overthrow him. I know if I throw it as far as I can, he's going to run under it and catch it. Just talks even more highly about how fast Marquise Johnson is.
Yeah, he's fantastic. He's really, really fun. I think, like Peyton said, it's a testament to who Jacob Peeler has found and how he's gotten these guys to build a dangerous wide receiver room. Should we go, just because we're on the topic, should we do Brady Cook before the defense? Talk about his big day. And I had a moment where I was watching him and I was like, this is head scratching stuff that he's doing for those who kind of know how far Brady Cook has come from. And maybe not head scratching. That's probably not the right word, because we do understand how he's developed. He's won the QB battle now in 2 seasons, played through a lot of injuries. He was playing through it again today. We know, I think his leg and his mobility are still a little bit limited. He finally slid and then broke his metal knee brace and had to put on like a different one. That made me laugh because we had been yelling at him to slide, and then he finally doesn't. It messes up the thing that's supposed to help keep him healthy. But he was just phenomenal again. And it's a testament not only to those receivers, but 33 for 41, 395 yards, 4 touchdowns. I mean, you cannot ask for any better than that. And then Kenny, I'll go to you first on this because, give your take on Brady Cook. And then he broke a record today too, didn't he?
Yeah, he broke this is an SEC record for the most passes without an interception. He's now up to 348. He broke it with his 19th pass of the game. And the last interception he had was against Vanderbilt. And this is Brandon Haynes, who's on the beat for the Columbia Missourian, tweeted that Brady Cook says he vividly remembers his last interception to Vanderbilt, goes on to recount the exact play. He says he knew about the record as of yesterday and hoped it continued. And it's great to see that he continued against Vanderbilt. Shows the growth that of Brady Cook this past year, just not just as a passer, as a runner, everything, as a leader, as a quarterback, just his overall game. And actually, this is something Peyton, I think, should bring up. He tweeted this video, the big explosive play against Kansas State to open the game. That's where maybe the light clicked. Everything was on for Brady Cook right then and there.
I was going to say that because, I mean, geez, who is this guy? This is, I mean, it's like watching a different person. I mean, he's setting all kinds of records. I believe Dave Matter tweeted a stat that he's the first quarterback at Mizzou. You think of the run of quarterbacks Mizzou has had over the years. Brad Smith, Chase Daniel, James Franklin, Drew Lock, Matty Mock, Blaine Gabbert. Just so many talented quarterbacks have come through. And Brady Cook is the first Mizzou quarterback since Chase Daniel in 2008 to throw for 300 yards in 3 straight games against FBS opponents. That is absolutely insane. He was 5 yards short of throwing for 400 today. I mean, he's an all-world player. Sometimes something just clicks on for a quarterback, and I genuinely think it might have been Kirby Moore giving him the keys to the offense, letting him hit that deep ball against Kansas State, because ever since then, this has been the most confident player I've ever seen play football. I mean, it is seriously, he's overthrown one guy and he has really started just constantly corking it deep. He's overthrown one guy, and I think it was because he expected Mookie Cooper to be a little taller.
Yeah.
Peyton, if I'm not mistaken, you told me before we started recording that he broke the record on the 19th pass, and it was they lost 5 yards.
It was a 5-yard loss.
So
thing.
And if he gains it, he's at 400 yards for today.
Well,
you're
the
right.
funny thing is, he broke it the pass before. It was an
Called
11-yard
back, right?
out route. Yeah, to I think it was
Called back.
Burden, and it was called back because of a holding, I believe. So
Yeah, because the announcer was like, he made it a bit because he was like, people in Coma are going to be mad at me if I just called him a record breaker, and now he never does it, or he throws a pick in this next play.
that was another
So,
thing. I was like, oh, here comes the most Mizzou thing ever.
Yep.
He's about to throw the most brutal pick you've ever seen, but he didn't.
another almost Mizzou moment. Pre-game, they were like, yeah, Brady Cook's going to break this record today. And I was like, yeah, he's throwing a pick six for sure. So thank goodness he didn't. He's stupidly locked in, to quote Mr. Jimmy Butler. It's something. You got something, Kenny?
Yeah, I got just one last thing. When you look at, where Brady Cook has come, you look at his 247 on three rivals, he didn't have all of these crazy offers. I mean, Mizzou was his biggest offer, and he wanted to be the Mizzou quarterback his whole life. Like, that was his dream. We never thought, he would enter the portal because he wants to be here. This is the job he wants. Yeah, people were a little bit tough on him. He did struggle last year. He had his faults. You just got to let the guy grow. And he grew into an offense, grew into an actual offensive coordinator. No shots on Drinkwitz. Drinkwitz was the head coach and the OC. He was doing, juggling both too much. And he was a quarterback's coach as well at some points. And you give all of this to another guy who's one of the best offensive minds, coach in the group of five, comes into the power five, and is really just growing as this offense goes. And that was something that a lot of evaluators probably should have given Brady Cook, was just time. Everything needs to be working on the offensive line. The weapons need working. He has everything at his disposal right now, and he's doing it himself too. It's not just the weapons that are getting him yards. He's throwing the ball deep. He's making accurate throws, and it just that's all he needed was time. And I think everyone was a little bit harsh on Brady Cook last year. And like I said, there were some errors that he made, but he's really just grown into this role, and he's become a great leader for this football team.
I'll just finish this part of it off. Wendell Shepard, friend of the show, Luther Burden on Brady Cook, quote, "Let him cook." He puts it plain and simple.
It is that connection. I mean, Luther Burden has had Brady Cook's back since day one. I mean, I remember last year he was always back in Brady Cook. After that Arkansas game, Luther Burden mobbed him while he was doing the post-game interview. And now we're seeing really what it's become. I mean, Kirby Moore has just totally unlocked everything about this offense. And you have to give credit to Brady Cook too. I mean, he clearly, after that quote after the K-State game where he said, "I hope everybody wants me to play quarterback for this school too," that really showed, I think, he knew the flack he was taking last year and even the first two games of this year. And he is really, I think you'd be a fool if you still had any reservations about Brady.
Yeah, I think everyone wants him to play now.
I was thinking about this before we jumped on here, that no one really had heard from Brady Cook. No one talked to him in the spring of 2022. A big quarterback battle between him and Tyler Macon. They didn't really know what these guys sounded like, what they talked about. And then one day, Drinkwitz puts both of them at the lectern. And he's standing there kind of just watching them to see what they say. And it was just like talking to Brady Cook then and then hearing him talk now, different guy. Like you could have told me, like, you could have never told me that guy's name. And he said, "Oh, that was Brady Cook." I would not believe you. This is like, you can't say enough, like how much a difference 2 years made a year made for Brady Cook. And it just looks great.
Confidence
has
come
a long way.
Yeah, certainly.
It's come a long way from him having to battle Tyler Macon for the quarterback job. I'll say that.
Yeah, we've come. The Mizzou has come a long way in a lot of departments at the start of this 5-0. Go ahead, yeah.
And the broadcast mentioned it that the competition really built him. I mean, it turned him into a different player. And I mean, the competition this year was a lot better. You had a guy who played at Miami and a 4-star quarterback who, has looked good. Sam Horn is, he had one of the best high school wide receivers of all time as well. Other than that, it's just they mentioned the Manning Passing Academy he went to this summer. We've heard that, and there's a lot of things that have contributed to a better season for Brady Cook.
Maybe one of them told him something. Eli or Peyton. He got some words.
What about Arch?
Or Arch.
Yeah.
People are saying Arch is up next.
All three of them is that Brady Cook can actually run around.
There you go. Yeah, he can use his
legs. That's the only difference I can think of.
Yeah. Oh, me too. Accuracy equal. Future Super Bowl champ, Brady Cook. All right. Well, let's segue. Let's go to the other side of the ball now, because this is where it gets, I think a little more gray in terms of the performance. We identified some issues on the offensive line, sure, but I think overall offense A as far as I would grade them. I'm no Max Chadwick, but defense. I'm going to start in the secondary because, the good, the obviously good highlight play, Chris Abrams drained another interception. That's big. So what is he, have 3 now? I think it's 3 in his last
Yes,
3.
3 in the last 3.
Yeah,
one
3.
in each of the last 3 after having 0 last year.
Yeah, so there you go. So a good improvement from him. I thought they had some good coverage, but there were some miscues, gentlemen, the secondary too. I know you guys want to touch particularly on that second Vanderbilt touchdown that made it 24-14. What happened?
Yeah, I mean, look, like we mentioned previewing this game, Vanderbilt has very talented receivers. Will Shepherd, I think, is an NFL receiver. Kyle McGowan, he was bottled up largely for most of the game, but I mean, that touchdown really was kind of what I was afraid of. Oh, Jaden McGowan, by the way, not Kyle. Kyle McGowan is someone else. But that second touchdown, I mean, and really the third touchdown was the one where I was like, really, are we doing this right now? There's just been cracks in the pass defense this year, and it largely hasn't been from the cornerbacks. I don't think I've ever seen Ennis or Chris Abrams-Drain get torched deep. I know Ennis had 1 rep he lost against Shepherd, but other than that, he was literally perfect. The safeties, though, I am really starting to be a little concerned. I mean, Joseph Charleston last year, very, very solid for them. He wasn't like a game breaker, but most of his Mizzou career, he's been pretty good. Today, he was really struggling. I mean, it looked like he was really just reacting super slow on that third touchdown. Sometimes, like I said, I mean, players like Shepherd and McGowan are going to make plays, but it was pretty concerning. It ultimately was just 5 or 6 bad plays for the defense amidst a pretty decent day, but they were really, really bad plays.
You hit it well there on the secondary, and I have really nothing else to add. I just wanted to talk about the defensive tackles. Coming into the year, it looked like a very strong core. Jaden Jernigan, Josh Landry, Realist George, and Christian Williams. Christian Williams, who came on the scene last year from Oregon, forced his way into the starting rotation, into the starting lineup. And it just seems like this year we're not seeing as much of a strength from those defensive tackles, not hearing their names called a lot, not seeing a lot of pressure. I think Christian Williams did get a pressure there at the end in the fourth quarter. And I was like, oh, there he is. I mean, Christian Williams is a character on that defense. He's a leader as well. And it just seems like a little bit uncharacteristic through these first 5 weeks. Maybe we'll see it pick up a little bit, see some more explosive plays. I mean, Josh Landry, who missed some time last year with a broken hand, broken wrist. He did have it wrapped for the final last couple games. I mean, he had 4 tackles at the defensive tackle position. That's the 4th most for Mizzou today. And so it may be just something that they'll work on. I want to just shout out Austin Firestone for that big tackle at the end of the game. He's looked like good depth, and a second-year guy, played at Northwestern last year. Good pickup out of the portal. Probably someone who could, get a little bit stronger and continue to come off the bench and kind of rotate in. But he's looked a little bit better these last 2 weeks. Kind of noticing him more.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I want to know, you can gamble over there in Tennessee. I want to know if any traveling Mizzou fan put money on an Austin Firestone sack, because probably made a lot if that was even a thing you could bet on. But
it's not.
Yeah, that it definitely isn't, but that's okay.
I want to shout out Austin Firestone because when he was, coming to visit Missouri, his name was circulating. I texted him. I was like, "Hey man, when are you gonna announce your commitment soon?" He was like, "Yeah." He's like, "I'm gonna announce it like in the next day. I'll just, I'll let you know." 40 minutes later, he committed to Mizzou. I mean, it was just that quick. Like, I finished up an interview with him. I was like, "Hey, when can I expect you to just commit?" And he was like, "In the next day or two." 40 minutes later, the graphic pops up, and I was like, "Okay, man." Like,
maybe your interview brought him the clarity he needed.
He was just waiting for the graphic.
It's like I really like
for the graphic. Whenever the graphic gets in.
Yeah. I did want to kind of piggyback off what Kenny said, though. The D ends have actually, for the most part, I mean, that was maybe the biggest concern coming into the year on the defensive side of the ball. I liked what I've seen mostly from the D defensive ends. Firestone has made a couple plays the last couple weeks. Darius Robinson, I'm kind of glad he got the day off today. Drink said his calf has been nagging him. Don't want to push any kind of nagging injury like that, especially going into a game like LSU. But when he's been playing, he's been productive. And obviously, we've talked about Johnny Walker. I mean, he has probably been the brightest emergence on the team so far this year, I would say. I don't need to see him drop back into coverage and try and cover Will Shepherd with Tyron Hopper anymore. I saw that on a shallow crosser late in the game, and it went for like 30 yards. But for the most part, I've liked what I've seen from the D end room. I think it's been maybe not more than enough, but like it's been a solid group. And against the run especially, I mean, the entire D-line, the interior and the D ends have been out of this world this year.
Go ahead, Kenny.
Got to shout out Niles Gaddy as well. Maybe you haven't seen him the last two games, but he did win SEC Defensive Lineman of the Week. So he's been a great pickup in the portal as well.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot about him.
I paid the, like, this just popped in my head while you were saying your piece, and you guys feel free to weigh in or not on here, but like, I almost feel like, to generalize a bit, what we kind of wanted to happen so far with how this offense and defense has been balanced in terms of production has sort of happened, where we knew in this season with Blake Baker, like, the defense had a lot of high expectations. I think a lot of people thought it would be really good. And the hope was that the offense would be able to kind of reciprocate that and, perform to, kind of match its level, especially if the defense underperforms a little bit. And I think that's like kind of what we've seen, where the defense has maybe underperformed a little bit, but is still very good. There's still a lot of talent there. And then the offense has, I think, blown us away in terms of how it's sort of found that balance, if that makes any sense. Because I just know, like, I don't know, the defense, I think, for me has been overall a little underwhelming, but then the offense has been way over.
That was the thing that needed to happen coming into the year. You needed the offense to really step up this year if you wanted to have a good year. I kind of did, just because defense is so fickle sometimes, and last year they were so overwhelmingly good. I did expect a little bit of a step back, and they have taken somewhat of a step back. It hasn't been bad by any stretch.
No.
It's been a good unit still. It's not been as dominant, I would say, especially on third and fourth downs. They've done poor for a lot of the year getting off the field. They were much better today, by the way. I don't know exactly what Vanderbilt was, but they were late in the game, 2 for 8. And Mizzou's offense, I mean, they came into this game 3 for 21 on third downs. They were way better today as well. Converted at least 50%, I believe. Maybe that was messed up by the end of the game. 6 of 12, yeah. So good days in that department for each unit, which was going to have to happen to remain successful. And the offense, like you said, Knowlton, they've stepped up. They've taken the little bit of slack the defense maybe left, and and then some, pretty much.
I think that's what I was trying to articulate, is that, when we saw that kind of maybe somewhat expected, maybe somewhat not expected regression from the defense, the offense has just overwhelmingly covered for that when it's needed to so far, which is, I think, huge.
We talked about the defensive end positions a lot. And when you coming into this season, they got guys out of the portal, but you lose guys like Isaiah McGuire, DJ Coleman. But I wouldn't even say losing DJ Coleman is like the worst thing, because he was great depth. I mean, he was a monster off the edge as well. Very underrated player for Mizzou last year. Niles Gaddy comes over. He was a transfer as well. I mean, Austin Firestone comes in. Niles Gaddy's a little bit more seasoned, like DJ Coleman was. So there's guys that are getting more reps at those positions, and especially on the line, and it's being more cohesive. I mean, even with D-Rob not being there this past week and him switching back to the defensive end position, it's more just, trying to get on the same page. You get Ennis Rakestraw back this week. I think he had the knee sleeve on is what the difference was. So just seeing this whole defense healthy and just all together, and get more, starts for Johnny Walker, and he's looked better. I definitely think you'll see this defense kind of push to those numbers it had last year.
Yeah, and I will say, Coleman did eventually usurp Jeffcoat for the starting job, if I'm not mistaken. But they lost their top 3 DNs, really. McGuire, Coleman, and Jeffcoat. Say what you want about Jeffcoat. I personally wasn't a big fan, but he was the third on their depth chart at that position. And like Kenny said, they did a very good job of not. It's almost a bit Moneyball-ish, where you knew you weren't going to be able to replace Coleman, McGuire, and Jeffcoat, but you were able to recreate them in the aggregate. And that's what they tried to do with Firestone, Gaddy, moving Darius Robinson over. And I would say, and Johnny Walker has stepped up, I would say it has largely worked out for them.
I want to touch on Trajan Jeffcoat. We know Arkansas did not play a good game against Texas A&M today, 34-22 loss in Arlington?
Yeah,
Arlington. But Trajan Jeffcoat, guess how many tackles he had in this game?
Goose egg.
He had a half tackle.
How can Mizzou live without that production? That sucks.
And just remember all the Arkansas fans on social media just picking fun at Mizzou
fans. All of Mizzou's best players keep going to Arkansas. Trajan Jeffcoat and his half tackle were sorely missed today.
We will shout out their baseball team because they have one of the best classes of all time. The class in general, just transfers and freshmen, is going to be one of the best baseball teams in the SEC.
Hey, don't forget about Trevor Brazil, guys. Basketball side. Once he gets healthy, he's going to really get going. His knee doesn't explode first.
Let's move on.
Yeah, moving on. I do want to touch because I want this take from you guys because I thought it was pretty funny. The announcers at one point said that Vanderbilt's special team, shout out to Kenny with Matthew Hayball, and he was good today, Vanderbilt's punter. He had some boomers. Avoided kicking to Luther Burden, so good take on that, Kenny. But there was a point when I remember the announcer saying that Mizzou has reciprocated Vanderbilt being really strong on special teams. But from what I know, we had some Eric Link moments in this game. So again, we talk about things that can hurt this team as the SEC play wears on. That is a thing I definitely still was not sold on. We don't have to dive too deep into it. That is not a part of their game I am still at all sold on. I didn't see any improvement today.
I mean,
apart from the punting,
Luke Bauer had a fantastic punt that the defense almost immediately ruined because of a roughing the passer. Just a horrible. But that was the worst penalty of the game. Realist George getting a roughing the passer.
That was bad.
On when the ball was on the 1-inch line, that can't happen. But again, they wound up punting, so it didn't matter. But outside of that punt, I mean, Bauer kicked one into the end zone from plus field, which is not what you want. Again, I don't understand why Mizzou ever runs out kicks on
Me
kickoff.
neither.
Just fair catch it. And they did later in the game. But they did it for some reason today. No, I mean, and I guess there weren't any snapping. And, I mean, they didn't do anything great today. They were fine.
Right. That's why I was just like, I didn't feel like they reciprocated.
Yeah, I didn't
Vandy
feel like,
whatever.
And I didn't feel like Vandy made a lot of plays on special.
Yeah, right.
It
was just
like a typical game.
Yeah. All right. I wanted the thoughts on that. Yeah.
I don't know if you guys saw the field goal for the first score for Mizzou. I think it was a little bit like wonky because Mevis was going to kick it and the ball wasn't even coming yet.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys saw that. Like it was delayed.
It was a line drive.
No.
Yeah. His kick was weird because of
like he was stepping into it and the ball wasn't snapped yet. It wasn't even like in the motion of snapping. He had to delay himself. So
that's why it was so low. He didn't like get any arc under it then. He also kicked
was an
one that
on that.
Yeah.
He also kicked one that it. That was a message we got.
That was a I to be honest almost thought I kind of forgot it wasn't an automatic first down either. So for a second I was about to start yelling and then I was like, oh wait, Peyton reminded me. It was like
you guys don't think that Drinkwitz doesn't know that, or they don't tell him? Like if they're going to tell him that, hey, you still don't have a first down.
They showed him. No, Drinkwitz. I don't think you should give Drinkwitz that much credit because they showed him, and he mouthed like, oh, it's not a first down, right? And the ref was like, yeah. And he goes, all right, we'll
He
take
knew.
the points. He
He
said
knew.
He was
that.
just
Well,
making sure he
okay,
didn't. I mean,
sure.
he was making sure that
Sure,
he doesn't
sure.
give them the first down.
I'll
the
give him
yards.
some more credit, I guess. But I don't trust Drinkwitz.
I had
know that
I
up
am
front.
normally a very much a go for it, like be aggressive guy.
Mhm.
That would have made no sense to really go for it there to me.
That's why I asked you first, because I was like, I feel like Peyton should be getting mad at this, but he's not, which means he
That
probably
was
knows
fine.
something that I don't know. But yeah. So I mean, a big win. I think an overall really dominant performance. There was some weird stuff that happened. Like Peyton said, they didn't play perfect, but they got the job done. Certainly a lot better than 2019. Kenny, your 3-player fact would have been a fun one for the other segment that we do instead of the Pac-12 thing. What 3 players were on the 2019 team? That
I think it
lost
was
to
4.
It was
Vanderbilt?
4, yeah.
Or 4, yeah. See,
And it
You want
was
to try it?
I know which 4
It's up
it
to
is.
you.
I
You-
saw the tweet on
No,
it.
no, Jack. Then Jack, you try it.
Yeah.
to pick the 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we mentioned one.
When
of them
you
today.
really think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Every one of them.
I think this is going to take me too long. I don't know.
Okay.
Darius Robinson.
Darius Robinson.
Okay, yeah, he didn't play today. So that's
Chad
why I wanted to do
Bailey.
that.
Xavier Delgado, and who was the last
Okay.
one? I forget
Javon
the-
Foster.
That's right. And I
Oh
believe
yeah, wow.
Foster and Bailey played, or maybe it was Foster and Delgado played.
Those
Two
do
of them
all make
played on
sense.
special teams the last
Yeah.
time Mizzou lost to Vanderbilt.
Nice. Okay, well, quick thing before we call it. I mean, 5-0. We're recording this on a Saturday during this. What if it everyone go watch this? But if you're watching on Saturday, go flip on the LSU Ole Miss game because it's a wild one. 42 to
They'll see
34
this
in the
after
third
it's
quarter.
over.
No, I'll get it up quick. You watch.
But,
Editing master. LSU next week. We're hyped now.
Yeah, no, they did what they needed to do. Win or lose, I don't think your season is broken if you lose next week. I think it's no big deal if you lose next week. I think Mizzou absolutely can win next week, especially because, boy, LSU's defense is suspect, but they got to LSU 5-0. That was what they really needed to do to potentially have a successful season. If you lose next week, whatever. You still have plenty of time to make it a good year.
I'll talk more about it in the preview, but one thing I'm just going to say now is that this is the Mekhi Wingo Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
You have to beat Mekhi Wingo. That's all you got to do. Beat Mekhi Wingo.
Beat Mekhi Wingo, you beat LSU. Yeah, I'm very excited. 5-0. Mizzou is now avoiding the trap game in the construction site. I love that Mevis literally hit the side of one of the buildings they were building on an extra point. That made me laugh. That's my last note. Mizzou 38, Vanderbilt 21. We'll look forward to LSU next week. Okay, we're back to ourselves recording on Sunday for all of you gracious viewers on Monday, because we have some other news. Obviously talked about Mizzou football being 5-0, beating Vandy. But one thing we didn't get to on Saturday, first and foremost, we'll do the recruiting in a second. But just because we were doing Mizzou football before we cut to ourselves, gentlemen, Mizzou's number 21 in the country. We learned today, of course. The AP poll came out, and the most significant piece to that is now ahead of their game against LSU, ranked above the LSU Tigers, who of course lost to Ole Miss. We'll get to that more in depth in the SEC tier list part, but just because we couldn't on Saturday, we didn't know where they would be ranked. Obviously figured they'd jump 1 or 2 spots, and that's exactly what they did, being 5-0. But yeah, number 21 in the country. How are we feeling?
I mean, who would have, if you had told me before the season Mizzou was going to be ranked above LSU for this matchup, I'd have called you a straight up liar. But that's the reality. And still, interesting enough, I mean, obviously, Las Vegas, the AP rankings are not an exact science. But LSU opened as an 8-point favorite in this one. And that really did surprise me because I did think LSU would be the favorite in this game, and to an extent, I mean, if I had to pick right now, I'd pick LSU, I think. But I was really surprised the margin was that wide, especially because you look at some of the other more advanced numbers. I mean, SP Plus, it has Mizzou as a 1.5 point favorite. So definitely think some people can make some free money there. But hey, number 21 in the nation, Mizzou got its first ranked win. I found this out if Barstool Mizzou is to be believed. That was Mizzou's first win while they were ranked since they beat UConn 9-6. So
Thrilling
really good stuff
game.
there. Yeah.
Barn burner.
So good stuff there. It's exciting. 21 ranked.
Yeah.
It's the highest ranking that the Tigers have been since we've been students and graduates of the University of Missouri. And we talked about it a little bit last week about what games, Mizzou, or what games could be College Game Day. We did find out it is going to be the Red River game, which we thought Oklahoma against Texas. There's only four matchups this upcoming weekend that are both opponents, both teams in the game are ranked, and two of them are 11 a.m. kicks: LSU and Missouri, Oklahoma and Texas. So this could be a lot of eyes on these games, especially the Mizzou game for this upcoming weekend.
Yeah, the early slate's the hype one this weekend. The only other thing I wanted to point out after college football kind of wrapped up last night, after we had already uploaded our Missouri segment, is this, guys, and we'll get into this more. We can just touch on it because obviously we're going to do a whole preview on LSU later on in the week. This is a matchup now that features the number 1 and number 2 receiving leaders in the country, in Malik Neighbors at number 2 for LSU, who I really like, and then number 1, LB3, Luther Burden III, 644 receiving yards on 43 catches. So that was just pretty cool to see him go number 1, not just in the SEC, but proving. I mean, we've seen Max say it amongst a lot of other people. Top guy for 2025 in terms of wide receivers on people's draft boards, and showing already why he's just one of the best in the country.
Yeah, absolutely. Spoiler alert, that will be probably something we discuss on Thursday is how is Mizzou going to defend not just Neighbors, but I mean, LSU is 2 very, very good receivers. They have another guy. I'm totally blanking on his name. His last name is Thomas. He has 8 touchdowns, and he's also really up there in receiving yards. So there's a lot of weapons on that LSU team. Luther Burden is the hands down number 1 guy at Mizzou, which is not to discredit anyone else on the receiving staff here at Mizzou. I mean, we lauded them in our recap of yesterday's game, and rightfully so, I think. But yeah, Luther Burden has been, honestly, he's exceeded my expectations for when he came here. I mean, for him to be this dominant, really, I mean, he looks like a man amongst boys out there. I mean, he's head and shoulders above pretty much everyone else on the field when he's out there.
I love comparing the stats to the 2022 season as well. 45 receptions for 375 yards last year, 43 receptions for 644 yards through 5 games this year. He has 5 touchdowns. He had 6 last year. One of the big things that stood out to me, and I don't think we've really noted this, we might have brought it up a couple times. So far this year, Luther has 1 carry. Last year, he had 18. So, I mean, it's a big difference, big shift in how this offense is looking, and he's been incredible. He's averaging 15 yards per reception.
Yeah, Brian Thomas Jr. is that other name that, again, we'll talk about on Thursday. But just to point that out, he does have 8 touchdowns. That is a lot. But yeah, so just a couple things to wrap up Saturday there. Mizzou number 21, Luther Burden's doing his thing. Everyone already kind of knows it. Another thing that came out Saturday after, of course, we finished recording, that's when they decided to drop this on us. Drinkwitz putting the bat signal out, and Mizzou football landing another recruit, 3-star athlete. He's gone as, I believe he plays receiver and safety. You guys correct me if I'm wrong, but Austyn Dendy, Pine Bluff, Arkansas native, committed to Mizzou, 3-star. Just after that win over Vandy. I was reading about him a little bit, guys, but what was his timeline, and break him down for us? He's got a little Travis Hunter in him, right? He plays both sides of the ball.
Yeah, no, I don't think he's going to play both sides of the ball at Mizzou. James Madison did tweet #NWO shortly after the Mizzou game ended, which was around when Drinkwitz tweeted the bat signal. Now, I don't know if that was just because Mizzou's receivers just had that good of a day, or if it's because they got Dendy. Maybe it's both. But yeah, that's just it. So if you believe that tweet maybe is related to this, maybe he's going to play receiver. We don't really know right now. He's the 7th best player in Arkansas according to 247. That comes from Wendell Shepard, friend of the show, of course. And of course, interestingly enough, he's not the first undecided position guy that Mizzou's gotten out of Pine Bluff. I'll let Kenny take that more because obviously he's the resident Pine Bluff expert, but good get for Drinkwitz.
Yeah, we talked about Jordan Harris, I guess earlier in the show, depending on when you're listening, and we did it in the recap of Saturday's action. And another guy coming from Pine Bluff, there's a lot of talent there. I mean, they've had a better football program in the last couple of years. And the one thing I'll mention at Austyn Dendy is that like his primary position is listed as a safety. But when you look at his ranking, it says athlete. So we know that he is that two-way player. Like Peyton said, we just don't know which side of the ball he's going to go on. Same thing for Jordan Harris. He was being recruited as a guy who could play on the defensive line. And coming into the season, he's been one of the best blockers, tight end blockers for Mizzou right now. We don't know if maybe the future is on the defensive line later down the road, but he's doing a perfect job as a true freshman in that offense, being a blocker. And maybe down the road, he gets more into the passing game, but he's proven that he can play on the offensive side of the ball as a 19, 18-year-old. Austyn Dendy coming out of the same high school program in Pine Bluff. Shout out the Zebras, who are actually not black and white. They're red and white. And I mean, if this guy is another one that could play both sides of the ball and he's just a true athlete, that's another big pickup for Mizzou, especially, I mean, he doesn't have a lot of buzz around him. You look at his 247 page, there's not a lot of great offers on the table. And competition wise, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Michigan State, maybe this is another one of those diamonds in the rough for the Tigers.
Yeah. Dendy, like I said, a 3-star. He was here. I'm getting this info too from Wendell Shepard and Brandon Hayes, the Missourian reporters. He was here apparently during that Gold Rush visit. That was when he took an official visit. Obviously, the second wide receiver, we don't know official or the third wide receiver commit in addition to Jude James and James Madison. Obviously, again, he could play either side of the ball, like Kenny mentioned. Apparently, also he's been used on special teams in high school. So pretty dynamic player, as everything seems to be pointing to. But yeah, another recruit. Obviously, nice to see Drinkwitz kind of doubling down after a win and then landing another guy that could have a big impact for the future. Staying on the recruiting trail, and just again, it's just become such a regular thing now. Dennis Gates, adding another one to 2024. I mean, what else is there really to say? This one we talked about it a little bit. Trent Burns, I know he's been on the radar for a little while, but he did indeed commit to Missouri. The 7'2" center, class of 2024, for another 4-star in the bag for Dennis Gates. It's I mean, to put it lightly, obviously it's just been spectacular. The Mizzou was already number 1 on 24/7 Sports' team rankings. Because of this Burns commit, they also now jump to first on Rivals, and then they're still 7th on On3, but still first in the SEC by some margins. So just guys, like tell the people about Burns, and I mean, Dennis being Dennis once again, first place on 2 different sites. Pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah, stat padding at this point, all these 4 and 5 stars. No, but I mean, Trent Burns, you know how insane it is to see Mizzou get a 4-star and be like, okay, instead of like, let's go, finally.
Yeah.
Like we would have been a few years ago. Burns, obviously, I mean, if you were concerned about Mizzou's lack of rebounding and big man potential last year, this class should be putting to rest any of those fears. Not that I think anybody probably was concerned that Dennis Gates would have just said, we don't need to be better at rebounding. Obviously, Burns, 7'2", On3 scouting report says he's a very good lateral mover and he can stretch the floor. It is interesting because his Final Four was strange. It was Mizzou, Tulsa, Rice, Xavier, and then he cut Xavier out of it. So it was really just Mizzou, Tulsa, Rice. He did get other offers from, I remember Purdue was one of them. Now I wonder if that was maybe committable or not, or if they were recruiting him that hard. But still, got to trust Dennis Gates, absolutely. He loves his just long wingspan athletes. Burns is just another another infinity stone for the gauntlet, if you will. And I think we all know where the sixth and final one he wants to go get is. We'll see. Even if they don't land Quintance or anything like that, I mean, this is an all world class for Dennis Gates. Trent Burns, maybe he won't light the world on fire as soon as he steps on campus, but he's an athlete that Dennis Gates believes he can mold, and Dennis Gates has my trust. So we'll see how that turns out.
This quote comes from Jamie Shaw, who talked with Trent Burns right after his commitment on 3. Coach Gates calls me the 7-foot sniper. He offered me right away after seeing me. He was the first head coach to offer me on the first conversation and first call we had. Coach really wanted me to play for Missouri. So Dennis knew right away that there was something special about this guy. And you read it as well, that he is a rim protector. He plays, good defense at the center position, but he can also shoot. He's a stretch big. And that's going to be a big thing to see, especially in a positionless basketball format that this Tigers program runs on. And if that's what Trent Burns can excel at, that's going to be perfect for Dennis Gates.
Yeah, he's been very vocal, and I can back up both of what you guys said or read about Trent Burns. I watched some film on him. His jump shot, it looks like a catapult, like shooting a basketball, because he's so lanky. He just it's not like an ugly looking form. It's pretty smooth, but it just looks like he just has to load up so much. But he was hitting threes. He had a couple of nice fadeaways in the little film I watched. Played for Houston Hoops, which is a good AAU program I'm aware of. And yeah, he's going to be useful. And this does fit, like you said, Kenny, what Dennis Gates wants. He's been very vocal that he wants his centers to be able to shoot. It's not just a bang down low type of situation. He said he's made that clear about Jordan Butler when Jordan Butler came in, being on the bigger side, and Butler said that's something he needs to develop to be useful in Dennis's system. So yeah, clearly this is a good fit. Whether it's a little strange that it was Mizzou between Rice and Tulsa, but maybe it was just a diamond in the rough. There's I won't go on too long of a tangent, but there is a lot of talent now in high school basketball that kind of slips through the cracks, where these 4-star or high-end 3-star guys don't get picked up by some of these bigger schools, and they do have Final Fours that look like Trent Burns. So it's not a crazy unrealistic situation that was his final 3, in my opinion. But either way, it's a great pickup for Dennis. He's gonna be pretty fun to watch. And yeah, again, number 1 on Rivals and 24/7 now. Obviously, those lists are all arbitrary in terms of how the recruits pan out, but it's pretty freaking fun to see them above North Carolina and Duke. I'll say that.
It would be cool if Dennis Gates and just any college football coach had an opportunity. I know it makes a lot of sense that they're not allowed to talk about recruits until they're signed, until they're in the program. They just gave them, you get 1 day out of the year, people can ask you questions about it. And how do you find some of these guys? I mean, you talked about it well there. Some of these guys slip through the cracks. Who got him on his radar? Who got Burns out there for him? And that would be just an incredible story to kind of hear that, because he probably has connections everywhere. And we know that every college basketball coach does. And I would like to hear that backstory one day, especially given who the other teams on his radar were.
It's pretty, that would be a cool thing, Kenny, because that doesn't really come up until these guys are already established. When I talked to DeAndre Golston, when I covered the men's basketball team, his recruiting journey, he started out at Kent State, and most people probably didn't even really know that, because he went around so many different places. But it was someone gave me a chance. He was, they came to all my games. They found there are some cool stories there. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so Trent Burns, 4-star center, coming into Mizzou in 2024. Tigers have the number 1 recruiting class on both 24/7 Sports and Rivals. On 3's got to get it together. I don't know. I think undervaluing a little bit. No, I don't know. And then of course Quintance, like Peyton said, goal for him is to be the last stone in the infinity gauntlet. Real quick before we go to quick hits, I meant to put this in the drive, but I was just going to do a rundown because it's been a little bit since we checked in with soccer, and I know volleyball too for Mizzou. 5-4-2 is the soccer team now. They had 2 ranked games against Arkansas and Georgia that were tough, but they only lost both of those by a goal each. So they're in every match. And then I know I pointed out Kylee Simmons to you guys a couple weeks ago. She has 9 goals and 2 assists in the Tigers' 10 games and leads the SEC in scoring with 4 in SEC play already. So definitely someone to watch for the future of this Missouri team. And then volleyball too. They're 9-5, which I think for us, like when we were there from 2019 to 2022, it went downhill quick for volleyball. And like the SEC is really good, but they had a good non-con. And they have a new coach, Dawn Sullivan, who seems to have taken over and done a decent job turning, because that program was good when we got there. Back in 2019, they fell off.
It was I can't remember their names who were running it just before we got there, and then the head assistant took over after they retired, ran that program into the ground. So good to see it's on the rebound, because, like you said, it has historically been a pretty good program at Mizzou.
Yeah, one of the premier ones. So soccer and volleyball doing a pretty decent job so far in their seasons. But yeah, exciting stuff. We'll obviously have a preview next of Mizzou and LSU on Thursday. But for now, we will go over to quick hits, keep the show rolling. Okay, quick hits time. Kenny, throw it over to you. Jersey of the weekend.
Jersey of the weekend goes to the Rice Owls. They debuted their Love You Blue jerseys. We know U of H. I had them as a jersey of the week not too long ago with their Oilers uniforms. And Rice, whose stadium, Rice Stadium, was the home for the Oilers in the 1960s for a couple seasons. They brought out some nice Love You Blue jerseys, and they wore the silver helmets, literally the exact same uniforms from the 60s. They looked great. They won their game as well, ranked the Rice Owls.
JT
they only had 2 losses on the season, 24-17 in their first home conference game against East Carolina. Great win for the Owls. Hoot hoot.
Hoot hoot.
I love.
What's the record?
Jerseys. Oh, 4-2.
Yeah, those were fire.
3-2.
4-2 or 3-2.
Oh, okay, 3-2, man.
These are pretty. Yeah. Doink in Sunday Night Football, by the way.
Greg Zuerlein doink, by the way, while we're taping this during Sunday Night Football.
But yeah, no, that's 2 Love You Blue jerseys. Those are pretty good. My jersey of the week, we're going back to buzzer beater Dre. Haven't mentioned him in a minute, but he's my jersey of the week. And because he, I don't know if this was his first game over in Hungary, but with the MVM OSC Lions, it was the first game of the season. His team won, the Lions won, and DeAndre Golston, 16 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, the 16 points to 2 rebounds, or 16 points to 2 assists. So true to DeAndre Golston's game. Good to see.
I was gonna say, can we get like how many shots did he take and from where, and how many of them were difficult floaters with 3 people basically draped all over him and he somehow made them?
How many Hungarians said, "What are you doing?" in Hungarian before he probably sunk it?
Hungary's come up a lot on this podcast. We had a great Hungarian city spelling bee back when we had that segment, and Kenny was gone, and Peyton did it on the fly. So maybe Dre plays in one of those cities now. Yeah, nice, good for him. My jersey of the weekend. We're gonna go to Columbia here. Obviously, we record this show remote, but we spent obviously a lot of time in Columbia. And many of us covered sports. Of course, one of the big high schools in Columbia, the Rockbridge Bruins. They played on Friday, and they debuted an absolutely fire helmet for their matchup against St. Mary's, which I believe they won by a touchdown, if I remember correctly. But they have a Sailor Bruin. Rockbridge, their colors are green and gold, but yeah, they had a Sailor Bruin. It's the Bruin with the sailor hat. Like, we'll have the photo of it, obviously, but this is just so cool. And like, I being from, and I've talked to Kenny and Peyton about this, like being from a state myself that like high school football is like not the biggest thing. And especially like my high school, its program was not like that dedicated. To see like different kinds of uniform and helmet combinations at the high school level is still like kind of jarring to me. And so it's pretty cool that like these players get to enjoy having some cool drip for a game and got the win. So it's not a cursed helmet either.
It's just a Baylor helmet. It really just looks like a Baylor throwback.
It does.
helmet.
It does look kind of like
stole it out of Waco.
Still fire.
It looks cool. Yeah, you love those old Sailor logos. Those are fun.
Sailor logos are great. Many of you may not know this, but right above me is the Sailor Tiger helmet. I just flashed it right there. It's the best helmet in sports. Kenny, you used to cover Hickman sports. Is there any talk about maybe getting a Sailor baby helmet?
A Sailor Cupie?
Yeah.
I don't know if there was any conversations. Cupid's had some cool uniforms here and there. You can
They
go
get
along
on
with
the-
a purple.
They get on the
Really
list every
fun.
year of like weirdest high school mascots or nicknames. The Hickman Cupies. All right.
Yeah, I want to know like more of the backstory on that. And I'm sure it's a click away, but I'll probably never look into it. All right, next segment, Ken Sports Shorts. This is going to be a pretty quick one this week. We're gonna jump into the Sun Belt here. The Missouri Tigers are 11-1 against current Sun Belt teams. They've only lost one game, as I just mentioned. Who was that against?
Ooh.
We just have to
The
figure out
one-
between us who their one loss was to.
In the
team.
Sun Belt.
Of course, you get
Ooh.
the X's.
Can
But
I
we
look
don't
up the
get to
Sun Belt
know
or is
when.
that cheating?
We get to
No,
know
you can't
when.
look at the play.
I
no
would
looking
say
at the
you can't.
teams.
We don't get to know
Okay.
when it was, right?
No, well, I'm not gonna tell you
Okay.
when the game was. If we get down to 2, I'll tell you what year it was.
See, the only Sun Belt I obviously remember, and this team, were they in the Sun Belt when they beat Mizzou?
That's a
Yes.
good
'Cause
question.
the Sun Belt's gone under a lot of turmoil.
Okay. It's not JMU,
Yeah, so it's not JMU. I doubt it's
not the
App.
Dukes.
I doubt
Yeah,
it's
I don't think
App.
it's App State. My
But
instinct went to you. Go ahead.
Mizzou did recently have, as recently as 2019, because we saw that game.
Oh, Troy?
Troy. They did play Troy in a series.
They did play
Um,
Troy. My instinct also went to UL Monroe because they did beat Alabama in like 2006. So maybe they.
I don't think Mizzou played them though. I don't.
What
think-
else you got? Like South Alabama.
And
You can
South
throw out
Alabama,
guesses. You guys have
South
3
Alabama-
X's. to
Well,
use.
we know, Kenny. We're not trying to waste our guesses. Don't tell
You
us
know,
how to quiz.
South Alabama moved up to FBS like in 2012 or something. So
Oh,
I
yeah,
don't
that's
think
true.
it's them. I don't think
Okay.
it's them. I don't think it's Coastal Carolina. I don't think because they also moved up
Chanticleers.
recently. So I'm cutting them, App State, South Alabama, and JMU out.
JMU. Okay, so you have like UL Monroe, UL
You got
Lafayette,
ULL. You got Troy.
Troy.
Oh, what are
La
some of
Tech?
the others there? La Tech is CUSA. now,
Oh,
I
you're right.
believe.
You're right.
They might have been Sunbelt at one
Pine
point though.
is Arkansas Pine Bluff in the? No, they're
That's an
not Sunbelt.
FCS school.
They're an FCS school. I'm tripping.
We can,
lot of Pine
you know
Bluff
what? We have
option.
three. We have 3 guesses. I'm gonna guess
'Kay.
Troy.
All right, I like that guess.
Got it on the first one. It is
Oh,
Troy.
nice,
Troy
Peyton.
is the only team that the Tigers have never beaten. They are 3-1 against Troy, with the one loss coming in 2004.
Or they're the
This
only
was-
team that has beaten Missouri.
Yeah,
Yeah.
from the Sun Belt.
Yeah.
it's the only loss. It's the only loss the Tigers
Yeah,
have taken. It's to Troy. Gary Pinkel was the head coach back in 2004, 24-14 in Alabama. Tigers won in 2002. They won in 2005, and as you boys mentioned, they won in 2019 under Barry Odom.
I missed that game. I was not present for that Troy game.
Kenny
the
was
other
there, but
wins-
he wasn't present.
I was present. In the Sun Belt, they are 1-0 against Texas State, 1-0 against Southern Miss, 1-0 against Marshall, 1-0 against Louisiana Monroe, and 4-0 against Eli Drinkwitz's Arkansas State.
Oh
So-
God, I forgot.
Oh,
about
yeah,
If-
Arkansas
honestly,
State.
if I had thought of Arkansas State, that would have been my first guess.
Yeah, just because
they
it's close.
had back in the day, they had that insane run of head coaches where it was like Gus Malzahn, Brian Harsin. There were 2 others that got hired away after 1 year. They used to be a very good program. Now they're under Butch Jones and they're not very good.
Butch Jones cries after losses.
He does. That was
By
a little
73
embarrassing.
points. I mean,
Yeah, that was embarrassing.
You shouldn't cry. You got paid to go
Cares
there.
about- cares about
all
his players.
right. Best beat.
What's your best beat of the week?
Best beat of the week. Yeah, let's look at the records real quick. Jack, you are 16-14. I am also 16-14. Peyton, you are 17-13. You have taken the lead for the first time in this new tradition we are doing of
Hey,
best beats of the week. Best beats
Kenny,
of the weekend.
you spoiled the parlay. Come on.
I did. I mean, it wasn't me. The Blue Raiders spoiled the parlay. They got
Yeah.
thumped by Western Kentucky
Yeah.
in those Hilltoppers. Well, we're going to look for some magic this upcoming week with Liberty against Sam Houston State. No one guessed my middle name correctly, so I did not go to the Sam Houston State game. Peyton's
Don't tell them. We can use that. We can use that for other things.
It's George. Peyton's grandmother. Peyton's grandmother guessed David. Pretty close. Another
This is a
biblical
very
name.
her logic was that she thought it was the president's middle name, not so she guessed David for Dwight D. Eisenhower. It's actually sound logic.
That's pretty cool that she knows it. And
I wish you would have guessed Woodrow. That was and that
Woodrow Wilson.
No, his middle name is Woodrow.
I know, I believe you. Well, we
Yeah.
talked about this already, but moving on, Kenny, go ahead.
so I have Liberty favored by 17.5 against Sam Houston State at home. I think Liberty's a great program, great morals for that school as well. That's the only time I'm going to say it is this week. Shout out Will Wagner too. He's pretty cool.
Disclaimer: Kenny does not believe what he is saying.
Kenny does not actually endorse the Liberty way.
I endorse it if there's money on the line.
Okay. There is not. Disclaimer, there is not. Peyton, go.
Disclaimer.
Okay. Also, I have
Oh,
one more thing to say about the best
God.
beats is that I believe Jack has one more bet than Peyton and I do because we have 2 futures, but we still all have the same number of games on the record. So if someone wants to go back and find it, I know no one will. Jack might have one extra loss or one extra win. It might have been misplaced at some point. But Jack, if you want to find it, you can too. I meant to
From
tell you
the
that.
records. No, I don't want to find it. That could be a loss that I have
sound record keeping.
scratched from the records.
Well, there was a lot of hard ones when Jack was making bets that didn't have lines on them, so I don't know if I lost them or he did bet on a quarterback starting a game and he didn't have an actual line on it.
Well, he didn't start the game either, which was embarrassing. But
In
I'm
my
back
book,
above
it's
500.
going as a loss, so I've got a 2-game lead on Knowlton.
If we were a law firm, that would be very bad. Losing records. All right, Peyton.
Yeah, I've been kind of safe recently, so I'm gonna go a little bit out on a limb in a game I feel is kind of a 50-50. Fresno State, Wyoming, 2 very tough Mountain West programs. The line here, Fresno State, who is ranked, if I'm not mistaken, I believe they're 24-25. They go on the road to Wyoming. Wyoming is a 6.5-point dog. I'm taking Wyoming to at least cover. They could win this game for sure. But Wyoming is such a tough place to play, as Mizzou very famously learned in Kelly Bryant's first game back in 2019. Texas Tech learned it this year, and Texas Tech has just not really recovered very well.
Don't go away to Laramie.
Yeah, don't schedule non-con games in Laramie. And if you're a Mountain West team and have to go to Laramie, pray. But yeah, Wyoming. I like the Cowboys here to at least pick up the 6.5.
How about them Cowboys? All right, my best beat of the week. I'm gonna, instead of taking a line, I'm not gonna do another fake bet like I had been previously. I've controlled myself. There's enough sports out there that I don't have to make things up. I'm gonna do the over in the Colorado-Arizona State game this weekend. Going a little Pac-12 action. Both these teams played pretty good games against USC recently. Colorado, of course, kind of came back in the second half. That was like a complete flipping of the script where USC was all over them in the first half. And then Colorado came back, had a very strange drive at the end of the game that kind of wasted too much time, and they weren't able to pull off the comeback all the way. But both these teams, they score a lot of points. I don't think either of them are very good necessarily. But I could see it being a nice offensive shootout. Maybe Dion brings out all the weapons just because he wants to get a win. He's lost his last 2 games. So I'm going to take the over 59.5, which I think is also just safe doing in the Pac-12. So
kind of an early game too. It's a 5:30 kick
for Pac-12 standard.
I would have expected this to end at like midnight, but no, it's a
Pac-12 Pac-12 after today. They got to put Dion on prime time.
I hope Arizona State can put up the points for you, despite the fact that you did say they score a lot. They kind of don't.
They did it against USC. That's all I'm going on. That's the only time I watched them.
They did just lose 24-21 against Cal, and they were shut out by Fresno State earlier this year. So.
Fresno State's they're a ranked
Hey,
team.
I don't care. Hopefully you lose.
How about if I lose? You know what? I'm so confident that if I lose, we can count the loss record game as a loss. So I get 2. But if I win, we count it as 2 wins.
No.
Okay, we'll do that.
No, we don't have.
Moving on. Dirty
Dude,
Birds of the
2-1.
weekend.
2-1, Peyton.
2-1. All right,
2-1.
we'll go with that. Dirty Birds of the weekend. This is my last shot at the Cardinals. The season ended today, recording on Sunday. This is pretty sad, though. Adam Wainwright, of course, he did get in at bat 2 days ago, and he grounded out in that sole at bat. It was 102.1 off the bat. 95 and plus is considered a hard hit. There weren't many hard hits for the Cardinals in this game. They lost 19-2 at home. They ended up winning the next 2 games, but this was the second hardest hit ball of the night of any Cardinals hitter. Andrew Kisner had the top one, and he also had the third hardest hit ball. That's kind of sad. That there are some future pieces in that Cardinals lineup that could make you believe there is, some good wins, good seasons down the road, but that's kind of sad to see. Shout out to Adam Wainwright, though. He wrapped up a 18-year career today on Sunday. He also got another at bat, but he struck out. It was pretty fun to watch that kind of stuff and see Yachty come back and see Albert come back. I know Peyton is happy, though, that the Cardinals won because that means the Cubs finished second in the NL Central.
Correct. This is one time I was hoping the Cardinals won because the Cubs rolled out an absolute punt lineup and did lose today. So they did at least finish second in the division. Goodbye, Adam Wainwright. It was not much of a pleasure, Jamie Moyer, Colt Redux.
There you go. I thought Peyton was going to roll. Roll into your dirty bird, dude.
I thought you guys had something else to say.
I have nothing
else to say.
My team finished first in the division, so I'm happy.
Same.
And you got the you got the Diamondbacks. They could beat you. Desmond Ritter is my dirty bird of the week. He has just had a horrible year. Has really been the target of a lot of Falcons fans' ire. I feel bad for him because he was just a third-round pick, and the Falcons kind of didn't make any plans at quarterback outside of him. And he was not very good today. He completed 61% of his passes for 191 yards, a touchdown. But the bad part was there were 2 picks in there. One of them was a pick 6. I saw the clip of it on the Toy Story version of the game. It was pretty funny. I'm sure it's not funny if you're Desmond Ritter, but I love the Nick games and Toy Story games. I mean, this is funny stuff. I mean,
yeah.
The touchdown thing after Desmond Ritter's pick 6 got a good laugh out of me. Desmond Ritter could be a pretty quality backup. He's just not a franchise guy. He's my dirty bird.
I missed the whole Toy Story game, but we were talking a little bit off air, but Kenny, you watched a little bit of it, right? It was pretty good?
It was enjoyable. It was
entertaining.
Kept you entertained. I wasn't really interested in either of these teams, even with the Jaguars being in the division of my favorite team. And it was, I like Booger McFarland. I think he's a great, listen, he knows a lot about the game, and he really played into it. He was trying to educate kids on how the game was played. And there was trivia during the commercial breaks because it was only on a streaming platform. You couldn't watch on your actual TV. And the trivia was fun. There was like next gen questions. It wasn't just directed to kids. So they kind of knew that during this commercial break, it offers something to those adults that are watching. I kind of just watched for fun. I didn't have a kid with me to watch it. That would be a little weird. Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that you didn't.
Just so everyone knows, you can watch it without one if you want to.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's not required.
It's not required. Except the Legoland in Kansas City. I'll say that. That place sucks. They would not let me go around and just look around at Legoland. They said I had to have a kid on me. That was pretty stupid.
You can go into the store, though. You can go right to the store if you want.
No, they wouldn't let you in. There's like these
Oh, they
metal,
let me in one
doors.
time.
They wouldn't let me in.
There was a
Also-
metal detector that detected
You
if you
could've
had
gone
No,
to
it's
any
a
the
metal
employees or not.
detector.
right next
It
door.
was these doors that open with detection, but they open outwards, and so you can't go through them. And
Oh,
I'm also 23 years old now, so I guess probably should move on from that kind of stuff. I was 22 at the time,
No.
if that makes any difference.
Legos are for adults now too. Don't
yeah,
forget.
Legos. Yeah.
They make a lot of those master builders, whatnot.
Yeah.
But
It's
Dalton.
age whatever plus. That means you can be in the plus. You don't have to be a kid. Okay, my dirty bird of the week goes to VAR, otherwise known as video assisted refereeing, the system they use in soccer. I'm connecting this to birds because it was used, or not used, I guess I should say, in the Liverpool versus Tottenham game. Both of their logos have birds on them. On Sunday, on Saturday rather, this got pretty controversial because basically, and I know, I'm going to sound a little biased here because all of the calls that happened were against my team. But basically the people who run VAR basically released a statement that in this game, VAR was just not used correctly to make a call that should have reversed an offside call that would have given Liverpool a goal. The verbiage is pretty funny. They said they acknowledge, quote, a significant human error occurred during the first half of Tottenham Hotspur versus Liverpool. Goals disallowed for offsides by the on-field team of match officials. There was a clear and obvious factual error that should have resulted in the goal being awarded through VAR intervention. However, the VAR failed to intervene. It's come under a lot of scrutiny because it's like, what's the point of having robots if the humans still can't use the robots right? We should just like soccer. Video refereeing is relatively new in soccer, and so like a lot of people are just like go back to just the refs making the mistakes and just leave the computers out of it if they don't help anyway. Liverpool had 2 red cards in this game that were also really questionable, so the whole thing was just like kind of a mess for what a lot of people want, like I guess soccer officials want to be the future of refereeing. So it's just a hot mess. I was trying to find a good analogy to compare it to like football reviewing, but there's been video review in football for so long that it's like they kind of got it down, at least for that. But just a mess, and it's pretty funny to see.
Today I learned the R stands for refereeing.
Referee.
I thought it was replay.
I thought it was replay as well.
This whole time.
No.
I'd never heard someone actually say it.
Video assistant referee. And I guess to put another emphasis on this, the 2 people who were in charge of the video system were removed from the next 2 games that they were supposed to work because it was such a mess. Like this, it's not.
That's kind of cool though. That's good to see that they are disciplining referees. You don't see that in baseball. I'll shout out our soccer team, Bayer Leverkusen, first in the table.
Best start in league
win.
history.
Yeah, we have a 14 goal differential, 16 points, top of the table. Team we beat, Mainz, minus 13 goal differential and 18th on the table, which is last.
It was literally first versus last
right now. Yeah. And the primary rival of Bayer Leverkusen is 17th in the table, also in the relegation sphere at the moment.
Who is that again?
Köln.
Oh yeah, Köln. That's right. Yeah. Best start in Bayer Leverkusen history. So we got on the bandwagon at the right time, boys. Huge for them.
Look at
They
us.
want to fly us out. Show us to a game. I mean,
That would be so sick, though. Like
our DMs are open.
That would be so sick. Oh my god. All right, Peyton, what'd you learn?
Best thing I learned this week, gentlemen. Today was game 162. We've talked about it a little bit. Kenny touched on this already with Wainwright finally retiring. Thank God. 2 more legends got a send off today. Zach Greinke, who hasn't officially confirmed he's retiring, I believe, but he was kind of. It looked like a final goodbye for him when he was pulled from his start in Kansas City. He got a very warm send off. He acknowledged the crowd. Very nice career for him. Kenny's a big fan of him, obviously. Well, not obviously, but he is. The other one, Miguel Cabrera. This was a really good one. It was his final game. Everybody knew for sure. His kids introduced him to during an at bat. Got a big smile out of him. he got to play first base for one batter, and Stephen Kwan grounded a ball right to him. He made the play at first base on his own. He was then pulled from the mound. AJ Hinch brought his kids out with him. It was a very warm moment. His mom was crying. He was emotional. Good stuff. He hugged Matt Vierling, which is pretty cool. I'm sure he'll remember that forever. So yeah, two very good send-offs for two pretty legendary. I guess not legendary, but two big names in the sport that are probably departing.
I'd call Mickey a legend. He's the last
I
guy
would
to
call
win the
him a
Triple
legend,
Crown. Like that's
Greinke-
legendary. Zach
Yeah.
Greinke, maybe off the field actions and stuff you heard about Zach Greinke is pretty legendary for how far his career went, how long it lasted. For a guy who didn't even really want to play baseball anymore, he wanted to switch positions, he wanted to cut grass. Overall, just crazy. Stories for him as well. The thing I'll say about that one ground ball is that the baseball always finds you. That's a saying you'll hear for the rest of eternity. That's a thing that happens in baseball. Whenever you're in a rut, whenever something needs to happen, or it's just like a romantic side of the sport, it finds you. And that was unbelievable that for a guy like Miggy, who's, an old guy, hasn't really played much first base in the last 3 years, that ground ball goes right to him is incredible. And, Stephen Kwan, you're a tryhard. He was busting his ass down the line. And I think that's just probably what Stephen Kwan's speed looks like, just generally. But he was pretty close to being safe.
Yeah, pull off, man. You don't need to.
You're not in the playoffs, or you're not even
Yeah.
going to make it either.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah, they were very good send-offs.
The best thing I learned this weekend also touches on the baseball world. Bobby Witt Jr. has the first 30-30 season in Royals history. He was also one stolen base away from a 30-50 season. He is the prospect that was promised. Did not have the best rookie season. Not everything was put together. A little bit slow on the defensive side. There were thoughts he had moved to center field. Comes out this year, and it was one of the best players in the American League, especially in the second half. If you're a Kansas City Royals fan, you should be really excited about Bobby Witt Jr. And I know there were some replies and comments. The guy doesn't show up early in the season. It's about how you finish. And Bobby Witt Jr. is going to be a really fun baseball player for a really long time. You just got to hope that the Royals lock him down.
He'll get MVP votes. Like, obviously not first place votes, but he's going to be on the MVP leaderboard. That's how good he was. Gosh, I know Kenny does a lot of work with the Royals for his job, and he likes the team. There's a lot of fun names on that team, guys that could be good. I hope they're able to put together a good team around Bobby Witt Jr. It would be really cool to see just a homegrown star like that in Kansas City.
Yeah, again, is way more of a baseball casual. Like, I remember when they won the World Series, it was like pretty hype for like, I don't know. I don't think there were too many people that were mad to see them win a title. And then seems like they kind of fell off hard after that pretty quick. So that's pretty cool to see.
And when you get, you can look at the Royals fans right now and you can say like, oh, no one's showing up. And they haven't really had any sellout crowds or really just loaded stadiums. When sports are good in Kansas City, you see it with the Chiefs. Those people care.
Yeah, they turn up.
The Royals team that's playing well, a Royals team that's fun, there will be fans. You look at the All-Star games from 2014, 2015. There were guys that didn't deserve to be All-Stars that were starting in the games because of Royals fans, because they cared so much about their players and getting them to the All-Star game, getting them to start too. I remember there's one graphic that the only two players that aren't starters or that aren't Royals that were starters were Mike Trout and Jose Altuve. One of the best pictures ever. And that just shows you how much the Royals fans care when their team is good.
Yeah, that's wild. So yeah, well, hopefully he can be good. My best thing I learned, actually, speaking of, I'm going to talk Monday Night Football. The Jets just tied the game against the Chiefs. Zach Wilson just got a 2-point conversion.
Primetime Wilson is fire. Look at this guy run.
He just like lunged for like a 2-point conversion. It was kind of nice. But my best thing I learned, this comes from Adam Schefter, who serves as a part-time NFL reporter and part-time Taylor Swift reporter. He tweeted, Donna Kelsey is now headed from her son Jason's game in Philadelphia to her son Travis's game in New Jersey. She will be joined there by, amongst others, Taylor Swift, Hugh Jackman, and Blake Lively. So Donna Kelsey pulling a Dion. Dion's double play. He went and played for the Falcons and and Braves in the same day. I'm mostly just using this as a parlay to like ask you guys how like if at all, maybe not, I don't know, how sick are we of the Taylor Swift stuff? Like I don't even know if I'm like overly annoyed by it, but it's just like so like Adam Schefter, I swear half his tweets now are just about what her activities or some form of the Kelsey's activities are. It's just a wild thing.
I don't really care too strongly one way or the other. Like it's a huge deal. So like I get it. Like you can say, why is it a big deal? I don't, because Taylor Swift is one of the most famous people in the world, probably. So yeah, it's a big deal. Sure, it can be a little annoying when you're trying to watch Sunday Night Football, I'm sure, and they just constantly cut to a live shot of Taylor Swift, but I feel like the outrage is a little manufactured. I don't care strongly either way.
People are talking about it, so it matters. I mean, you can get all annoyed you want. It's working. I mean, that's exactly what it is. Storylines in the NFL. I mean, it would be boring if we were just watching this game and the Chiefs are blowing him out. There's no Aaron Rodgers to talk about why he's there or why Zach Wilson is still at quarterback because he's been struggling his ass off. And just having these other storylines in the NFL, it makes it fun. It starts conversation. It starts just different things to talk about, especially when games aren't going that way. But I mean, look at it right now. It's a pretty close game.
Yeah, I agree. People shouldn't be haters. Obviously, with the situation like this, people are going to be. Because I have two things. One, I like what you said, Kenny, where it is. I mean, I watched that little thing that they did on The Voice where they were like explaining the context of the game to like maybe new fans who are like watching football for the first time, but are just big Taylor Swift fans. That's fun because it's introducing people to football. I mean, that gets people watching the sport. It grows the game. Like that's pretty cool. I also love that they then quickly introduce those people to just how bad the Jets are by saying like, so these guys are coming in here, you know, they could win, but they probably won't. Like they're the Jets. Like I thought that was pretty. They were very open about that. The other thing with just all the crazy stuff you see from like Taylor Swift fans of like what they can like find, I think they're going to discover new things about football. I think we should get them on like deep cut. And I'm stealing this take from people on Twitter, but like get them on deep cut, like stat dives, and they can figure out like who's going to win the Super Bowl. I bet from like, I don't know, vibes or something else. Like that's what I want to see. Or is them just get like, what aura? Who's giving off what aura? Can that be translated onto the field? I want that to happen. Screw next gen stats. That's what I want.
I'll say this also. Do you guys remember when like Britney Spears fan accounts like were beefing with Victor Wembanyama?
Yeah,
they'd post like they posted when he got postered by I forget. But that was so funny. I kind of like if Travis Kelce catches a touchdown, I want to see Swifties like posting the video of Travis Kelce lost in a linebacker for a touchdown.
Can you imagine like them versus Sauce Gardner if like he gets a game winner in this game over him or something? Like poor Sauce Gardner's mentions are just flooded.
Sauce Gardner would be done. It would be over for him.
It would be bad. Was it Kai Jones that dunked on Wembanyama?
It was Kai Jones.
Oh, man.
I think it also opens the door to a lot of like more like investigative journalists. And this is going to be like football is going to have a bunch of new people digging deep into some
that's
of the
what I'm
backgrounds.
saying.
Yeah. And
it's
so
hype.
you're going to
That's cool.
Like there's just going to be more journalism accounts, more accounts out there. There's competition. These ESPN, NFL Network, Fox reporters, they don't know what's coming. They're going to start losing sources to these Taylor Swift reporters.
It's people thinking outside the box. You know, they're not, they didn't get into football first. They're into Taylor Swift first and now into football. And then, they'll see things from a different point of view. I don't know. It's all just kind of a fun circus. I think you should just all kind of enjoy the ride. And people are way too weird and dumb about it all. But there you go. That's the best thing I learned. Shout out to Donna Kelsey for just jet setting to see her sons play football.
You guys should watch the Kelsey documentary as well. I liked it. It was pretty good. Kind of shows you the behind the scenes. Connor Barwin's in it. I think I talked about that last week as well.
He did, yeah. He was in your,
Connor Barwin, pretty cool guy. He was a Texan. Okay. We got 3 ratios of the weekend. I'm going to start it off here with the fantasy football counselor. He tweeted 2 days ago, David Montgomery can tear a hammy, ! He capitalized the H in hammy. Who cares, ! The Lions have no respect to the fantasy football community fans or Gibbs. They all lied, and they're benching the better running back in their first overall pick, Snakes. 1,300 replies, 813 quotes and repost, and 98 likes on X, 1.5 million views. He also had a video about it. His next post on X is a video of him responding to people responding to his post, and he has 61 replies to 11 likes. This is just such weird behavior. I wish there were like 4 people that tweeted or posted about fantasy football and then no one else was allowed to.
Yeah.
We should just become like a dictatorship and just not allow people to talk
not
about
a bad
fantasy
idea.
football.
I would
It's
like
so bad.
I would like
idea.
a monopoly to be allowed on fantasy football takes, because every single fantasy football Twitter account, the absolute worst. I mean, just horrible takes. I mean, such a bad view of football. You could ask them to identify a cover 2 shell. They'd have no idea what you're talking about. It is
They know
literally
they can describe you half PPR in their sleep.
I'm gonna just be mean to this guy. This is like the lowest form of humanity. Like, it's humanity at its worst. This guy, fantasy football has made just like, it's fun if you're enjoying it and everything. I like fantasy football. People like this are the worst.
And it's even fun to like make content about it, but it's like there's a line where you have to understand it's fantasy football. Real football works differently, and that might impact how you do your fantasy football. Like, also,
Like,
there's one simple rule too: don't root for injuries. So that's automatically gonna get you ratioed. That's
Jahmyr Gibbs is not a running back that is gonna go in and give you 35 carries a game right now. Anyone with any football sense knows that. And all these fantasy accounts are the exact same. It's like, I don't know, Cooper Kupp went on the IR, and it's like every single fantasy football account, add Tutu Atwell and Puka Nacua in all your leagues. Oh, Tank Dell had 50 million points last week. Make sure to pick him up on the waiver wire. It's the same exact thing. Every single one of them are the same, and none of them add anything new.
Well said.
That's all.
Next ratio.
Anyways, the Ole Miss ratio is our next one. I have this one pulled up here. If you didn't see, Ole Miss won an absolute barn burner against LSU. It was 55-49. LSU completely blew it at the end. So LSU football tweeted final from Oxford, which itself was kind of a heavy ratio, not quite to the same extent. But this Ole Miss football quote tweets it with L+ ratio, and an absolute, like, it's one of those Jack recaps video. Like, it's a total shit post. It's the video of Brian Kelly dancing with his back to the recruit. It's absolutely, the audio is messed up. It's edited to all hell. The numbers on this one: LSU's final from Oxford tweet got 1,700 likes. This Ole Miss tweet has 25,000 likes. So they achieved their goal. L+ ratio indeed. Ole Miss football. The Lane Train. Shoot, shoot. All aboard.
Yeah. I just think I always am gonna think these kind of videos are funny. This cracked me up when I saw it, and I don't know. Yeah, it is like the little shit post that I make for Mizzou, but I don't know. They crack me up, and the final posts for the losing team are always doomed, pretty much, especially if you're an SEC program.
Don't listen to that video with headphones on. Actually,
Don't. It'll be
very
bad.
loud.
Speaking of Ole Miss, we're gonna segue. We will finish the show with SEC tier list week 5. This is a good one. I'm excited about this one because, like we've been hinting at, the SEC was fun this week. So stay tuned. We will do that to finish the show off. Okay, we're gonna finish off the show.
Oh, wrong segment. My bad.
That scared me.
I thought we were doing
No, wrong
fraud
segment.
ranking.
It's not Thursday, Kenny. Hold it in. I know you
Can't
love
believe
to
I got
talk
guessed
about the
that
frauds.
college right.
It was NFL Sunday today, so Kenny was thinking about the frauds of the week, but we'll get to that later. We have SEC tier list this week. We had a good Saturday in the SEC. There's a lot of tiers we decided to craft up. So we'll just start from the top as we usually do. First tier, of course, is the Georgia tier, which I'm keeping as a tier. However, I'm taking Georgia out of it. Of course, Georgia, they had a what ended up being kind of a thriller against Auburn, but I saved the Georgia tier because I'm going to be a little biased. I'm just going to do it. I'm putting Brady Cook in the Georgia tier. Brady Cook, he broke the SEC record. Chase Daniel shouted him out on Instagram. That was pretty cool, I guess. But yeah, most consecutive pass attempts without an interception. And yeah, I just think that's exciting. Yet another phenomenal performance. So I'm going to be fully biased and put him in the Georgia tier just to keep the Georgia tier around. He's had a Georgia-like season, I think, since he's won the job. So
It's kind of remarkable because, I mean, you think back to like this time last year. I mean, right now he's got 7 touchdowns, no picks, I believe. Probably more than that. That was probably going into the game. I mean, last year he had like 6 picks, like really early in the season. I mean, I remember blatantly looking at a stat line that had him with 7 touchdowns, 6 picks. The work he's done to just improve as a processor, he's confident. He absolutely deserves all the hype he's getting. You're not going to hear any arguments from me for putting him in the Georgia tier right now.
all right, I'm keeping him then. All right, moving down next tier. I'm just calling this the elite tier, and we can dispute this. And again, it's overanalyzing the last week, so just keep that in mind. I am keeping Georgia in there. So actually, maybe if it's overanalyzing the last week, we should drop them way down. I don't know what you guys think about that. But in that tier, I put Georgia and Ole Miss. Now, I know Ole Miss the game was close, but they did beat a good LSU team. And Georgia, I guess if I am going by my own logic, maybe if we're just basing it off the last week, we can drop them down. But whatever you guys think.
I think you need to throw Alabama in this tier as well in that case.
Ooh.
They beat Ole Miss. We thought there'd be a closer game. We thought Ole Miss was going to win that game as well down there in the SIP. But Alabama had a good game against Mississippi State on the road, 40-17. They were ranked 12th at the time, looking a little bit better. Milroe's looking a little bit like a cleaner quarterback altogether, and I would throw him in that tier.
Okay,
Definitely
do we want to put
that? Yeah.
Do we want to put the next tier I have down as good? Do we want to really punish Georgia for a kind of rough performance and swap them with Bama? So we do Ole Miss, Bama, and elite, and then Georgia and good? Or does Georgia have enough precedent that it negates their game on Saturday? Because it was bad.
Precedent matters here.
All right.
And I would also like to point out, it's not like Auburn is some pushover team. Like, this isn't Brian Harsin coaching them anymore. They've got a little bit of something to them. I just don't think they have a quarterback really right now. I'm fine with putting all 3 of those teams in elite, really.
Okay.
I don't really think any of them deserve to be bumped any lower as of now.
You can't knock on Auburn for playing tough at one of their big games with Cam Newton out there, Charles Barkley. It was a big game just for Auburn in general, and you play well under those circumstances. Peyton Thorne is just – you can't win games in the SEC with Peyton Thorne right now.
Rough. Well, I saw that photo, wasn't it? It was like Suni Lee, who's the gymnast, and then it was like Barkley, Newton, and Frank Thomas, right?
I didn't even know Frank Thomas went to Auburn. That was the first time I found out. It was Frank Thomas. It was.
Yeah.
He looked small compared to Charles Barkley and Cam Newton. Cam Newton's taller than him. Frank Thomas is a big guy. He was a monster hitter.
Big hurt, right?
Exactly. Yep. And he looked somewhat small compared to those dudes.
He do steroids?
Not confirmed.
Okay.
I honestly don't know. He's in those Nugenics commercials.
He's in the Hall of Fame,
That's
so he's not. Yeah. He didn't do it.
He didn't do it. All right. All right. So then elite, we'll put Georgia, Ole Miss, Bama. Then and below, I just had the good tier. I guess I was feeling a bit lame this week, but I have the good tier. Mizzou and Tennessee is who I'm putting in the good tier. Some might be wondering why Kentucky's not in the good tier. We're going to get to that. We've got some takes on Kentucky, on the Cats, who jumped into the rankings. But we're going tier by tier. So below the good tier, we have the Jerry Jones hologram game tier. This belongs to Texas A&M, who beat Arkansas in Jerry World, where Jerry Jones has a hologram, if you did not know. One of the scariest things I think I could ever imagine facing is like worse than the real Jerry Jones would be an AI hologram of him. But congrats to A&M. Didn't think they quite deserved to make it into good just yet, but they do look all right with their team.
I'm going to say that true score is 34-16. That was a really late touchdown from KJ Jefferson, and he just does not look like the same KJ Jefferson that was playing for Arkansas last year. And I'm pretty high on Max Johnson. He did have that one interception. He looks like a different quarterback. With Connor Weigman out for the season, guy who started the season hot for Texas A&M. Max Johnson stepping into this role really well. Talked about him last week, having that experience at LSU as well. I'm going to go on a limb here. It's going to be weird, and you guys can drag me if you want to. I got Texas A&M beating Alabama next week. I think the Tide going into
Where is
A&M.
Oh,
It's in College Station. I might be at the game. We don't know yet. I'll post a photo if I am. But right now,
the 1 of 3 tweets could come back. We haven't had one in a long time.
So
none of us have gone to tweet.
We don't leave our rooms.
We don't leave our houses.
But I'm pretty high on Max Johnson. I think this Texas A&M team is starting to piece some stuff together on the offensive side, and they had a good showing against Arkansas.
I'm with you, Kenny. I actually, we do our own polls in our friend group from college. I ranked A&M. I put A&M at 25. I think A&M is a legitimately very good team. Talent-wise, I mean, the recruit rankings they were putting up the past couple of years are absolutely ridiculous. Evan Stewart, your guy. Knowlton is a bona fide wide receiver 1. He's elite. Losing Weigman hurts. He has a high ceiling. Like Kenny said, Max Johnson I think he's good. I think he's a solid player. He was playing well for A&M last year before he got hurt. And yeah, I guess we'll talk about Arkansas a little more later. They look messy, and it does not get easier for them. I'm not going to go on the same limb and say they're going to beat Alabama. Jimbo Fisher was the first ever assistant to knock off Nick Saban. But I do think A&M is a good team, and I think we should recognize that.
Yeah. They'll stay in that tier, but we, de facto good is the consensus, I think. Yeah, they look solid. Next tier, this is the more receiving yards than Dominic Lovett tier. There will be 25 images of receivers in the SEC in this tier because there are 25 receivers that have more receiving yards than Dominic Lovett. Chose him at random. Seemed like a good middle ground. I have no personal nor collegiate bias to choose that, of course. I'm kidding, but
do you think Dominic Lovett is jealous of Luther Burden's receiving yard total?
Probably. No, yeah. I mean, probably.
I would have.
Although if Dominic Lovett wins a national championship, maybe not. I'm not saying Georgia are going to do that, but I mean, it's Georgia.
They're the number 1 team in the nation.
Yeah. I don't know, but yeah, Dominic Lovett, he's been bad since he's transferred to Georgia. There were a lot of Mizzou fans who hit the panic button.
And
he
hasn't gotten involved over there. I don't know what it is.
No, it's still been the Bowers and McConkey show for the most part. There's another guy too that's ahead of him on this list from Georgia.
Thomas, I believe, has more than him.
It might be him.
Yeah.
But either way, we're doing that, and then right below that, I'm putting a only needs 1 more yard, and that's going to Mookie Cooper. Because I originally thought that both Cooper, along with Wease and Luther Burden and Theo Wease, all had more, but Mookie Cooper has 1 less. So we're making a specific tier just for him, just for you, Mookie. But yeah, it has been pretty phenomenal. We've talked about Jacob Peeler already on this show and what he's turned this room into. And yeah, definitely silence the doubters that Dominic Lovett would be a problem, or Dominic Lovett leaving, I should say, would be a problem. Next tier, we talked about Peyton Thorne, and Kenny, that's a good way to describe this. I'm calling this the how are they even that close tier, and I'm giving that to Auburn, who did, credit to them, challenge Georgia despite having a quarterback who threw the ball 19 times for 82 yards and an interception. And yet they lost this game by a touchdown. So how are they even there? How'd they even get that close? I don't really know.
Yeah.
But
importantly, he also had like 90 something rush yards, I believe.
Yeah.
But
that doesn't fit the narrative.
You look at the box scores between these two teams, it doesn't look like it should have been like Georgia should have won this game by 17 plus, but they didn't. Georgia has looked pretty vulnerable at times this year. They did what they always do. They pulled away late. Brock Bowers is just elite. Peyton Thorne is not elite. And that showed up at the end.
Well said. Kenny, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What segment did you think we were doing to start this third part?
I'm not doing this because I don't agree with what you're going to say. You can call it whatever you want.
Say it. I'll say it. Fraud. He thought it was the fraud segment. But there is a fraud tier. And I'm putting the Kentucky Wildcats in the fraud tier. I know Peyton believes me for right now. Now, I'm going to put this caveat out there first, Peyton, before we lay into him a little bit. Kentucky is getting very close to having me believe. There were some things they did in this win over Florida that scares me a little bit on the defensive side of the ball, especially and with their running game. But like we already didn't like Florida. Kentucky beat them. They are 5-0. Probably deserve to be ranked just based on the record alone. But I'm putting them in the fraud tier. Maybe a hot take. You guys can argue for or against.
Here's the thing. I don't want to use the word fraud really for Kentucky. That's not how I would describe my feelings. I still don't have a read on this Kentucky team. They're 5-0 with pretty weak wins in 4 of them. I mean, they beat Vanderbilt by as much as Mizzou beat Vanderbilt, and they gave up more points. They needed 4 quarters to pull away from Akron. They were trailing for a lot of the game against Eastern Kentucky. They needed the second half to pull away from a bad Ball State team. And I do agree with you, Knowlton. I was not high on Florida. I really never, even after the Tennessee game, I didn't buy that team. And we saw why. I'll say this for Kentucky. If they can get Ray Davis going like that every game, like obviously 280 yards isn't going to happen every game. If you can get contributions from your run game like that, yes, that's big. But Devin Leary didn't even throw 100 yards in this game. And Kentucky put up 3 points in the second half. They did everything in the first half. I think this was more about Florida being bad than I think it was Kentucky being good. Now, Kentucky, if they play Georgia close, I'm going to tip my cap and say Kentucky's legit. But as of now, yes, I would rank them. I did not feel they deserved to be ranked above Mizzou just by beating Florida in this one.
I was surprised. You scored 33 points and your quarterback only attempts to throw a pass 19 times. And I guess that's just credit to how good Ray Davis was in this game. Ray Davis gave a lot of credit to the offensive line as well, which took some knocks the last couple of weeks. He said the big blue wall is what got him there. And Ray Davis, I've talked about him at length as well. I think he's one of the most underrated running backs in all of college football, not just the SEC. And we saw it in the transfer portal. Everyone was coming after him after he left Vanderbilt. Guy is such a smart runner. It's not just the physical side of him. You see him break tackles. You see him put his head down. He's going to run through somebody and get those extra yards. It's almost like the old Le'Veon Bell, like prime Le'Veon Bell with the Steelers, lets the play develop, pretty much like slows down the play, and then just a burst through a hole. And that's what Ray Davis is. And he had some pretty explosive runs. He's going to be an incredible runner. And it's really coming together for him. If they can get Devin Leary going and kind of expect what they've wanted from Devin Leary coming into the season, I think they'll continue to rise in the SEC. These games are too close. They're a little too weird.
Just going back to it, I was super high on this Kentucky team coming into the year. I thought they'd finish second or third in the East. But I've been just underwhelmed by what I've seen until Ray Davis did what he did in the first half against Florida. I really was not impressed by almost any facet of Kentucky. Even the game they scored 45 against Vandy. I mean, 2 of those were pick sixes, and Devin Leary threw more picks than touchdowns. The big question for Kentucky coming into the year was if their O-line would be better than it was last year, because it was a disaster last year. And if Devin Leary, coming off a bad injury and relative poor play, would bounce back. Those 2 questions still have not been answered, really. I mean, like you said, Ray Davis gave all the credit to his O-line on Saturday, and they were a lot better Saturday. But, I mean, you can't ignore the first 4 weeks where it was rather subpar. And Devin Leary, I mean, we're still waiting for him to get going.
Longest pass for Devin Leary in this game was 12 yards. Not really airing the ball out much.
Yeah, it's
all right.
been messy.
I'm willing to rename the tier to be. Did Zach Wilson just fumble?
Yep.
Oh, the Chiefs got it back up 3. Brutal. I'm willing to rename the tier because also I like a team with a good defense, and Kentucky clearly has one. I don't know. Should we call it good, not bad, bad, not good?
I would say I just don't know.
Bad, not good, bad.
I would call it what are you, or something like that. 4 question marks, what are you? Something like that.
All right, we'll call it the question mark tier for now. All right, next loser tier. I chucked LSU, South Carolina, and Arkansas into this one. LSU obviously is kind of harsh. It was a crazy game, but they did lose. Arkansas, Peyton seemed like he could maybe make an argument for the dog water tier for them. And then South Carolina lost to a good Tennessee team. Oh, Kenny, you mentioned Mississippi State. They're coming. They're coming up. Unless you want to promote them to lose.
They're the Bulldogs.
They are in the dog water.
They're the
Bulldogs. Bulldog water.
I don't think, just going into this tier, I don't think it's harsh to put LSU in this tier. Their defense is an absolute mess. On Bill Connolly's SP Plus rankings, which kind of factors in, they're supposed to be predictive, factors in just a lot of facets of the game, their advanced metrics. He has LSU's defense 64th in the nation. For perspective, Mizzou's, who we've been kind of concerned about for a lot of the year, they're 18th. So LSU's defense, particularly their secondary, I mean, Jackson Dart was ripping it to shreds. I mean, just absolutely eviscerating it. Their offense, I mean, it's been great. I mean, you look at the numbers from their receiving core, it's awesome. Jaden Daniels has been largely great. It's just Jaden Daniels occasionally has some of the craziest turnovers you've ever seen. So that's a little bit of a scouting report for them, I'd say. And Arkansas, more like who pig, Suey. This has been a nightmare season. I mean, that loss to BYU before the 4-game stretch they're on, that was gonna be trouble. And I mean, we're seeing it now. A&M was probably the most winnable game they had in this next 4. Now they go on the road to Ole Miss, and Ole Miss, they are coming off an emotional win. Maybe you can spring a trap game there. Then they go to Alabama. I mean, it does not get. It's very, very tough. I mean, they're staring down the barrel of 2-5 right now, and I think it'd be a win if they weren't 2-5 by the end of this. Yeah, KJ Jefferson, like Kenny said, has not been the same player. I mean, I was literally miserable when I found out he was coming back, because he's just been one of the better SEC quarterbacks for 3 years now. They replaced Kendall Briles as OC with Dan Enos. Has not worked. I mean, Rocket Sanders, who people were expecting to be all SEC, I know he's been dealing with injuries. He's not even over 100 yards on the season yet, I don't believe.
Wow.
Their O-line gave up 15 tackles for loss against A&M, 7 sacks. It's a nightmare right now. And Sam Pittman, he's recruited well. He got a lot of hype after Arkansas went 9-3. I'm not sure he's back next year as of now, and that's tough to say. But I mean, I look at Arkansas' schedule. I don't see 4 wins for them, and they need that to make a bowl game. So things are going south in Fayetteville real quick, and it really tears me up to say that. Let me just say, I really love Arkansas University a lot.
University of Arkansas.
I don't care. Fuck them.
Ark. Hilly, very hilly campus. That's my only
So was
thought.
Mizzou.
Yeah, true. Wait, what? Mizzou's flat.
Mizzou is hilly.
Not as hilly.
Not really.
No, I don't think it's hilly.
There's
No.
maybe one.
There's a hill. There's a hill in the football stadium.
There's
You might be
hills
thinking of that.
walking to South. There's hills walking from Todd to the Student Center.
Agree to
I
disagree.
remember hills.
And then I just put South Carolina in there. They lost to Tennessee. Not much to really.
They got
decide.
blown
Tennessee's
out by
solid.
Tennessee.
Yeah, they did. They did get kind of crushed.
South Carolina.
But that was also
looked
like
very bad.
that was also like a revenge game for what South Carolina did to them last year. Like you knew Tennessee was going to play that game.
Their O line sucks. They don't have a run game. It is what it is.
Ultimate Frisbee player tier, Graham Mertz, put him in there.
Terrible.
244 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick on 25 passes. Actually, probably his best performance of the year. Doesn't matter. They still lost, and he stinks.
14 points. That's all it got.
Dog water tier. This is where Mississippi State comes in. I also put Florida in this tier. The losers, of course, 14 points against Kentucky. We've said they look bad. And then I put Vandy in this tier as well. And then the only tier below, I put construction site, and that will have just the Vandy scoreboard because that was very funny. Harrison Mevis literally hit a piece of scaffolding on an extra point. This is a Power 5 school we're talking about.
Now, call me crazy. I think Vanderbilt should pay homage to this somehow. Like maybe when they build their actual scoreboard, put like a couple cranes on the side of it, something like crane part.
Have a sponsor. Have it sponsored.
I think it's
maybe
awesome. Yeah, I honestly love that scoreboard. I think that's hilarious.
I think it's dumb. I think they should have finished the stadium before the season started. Oh, Mahomes just had a massive run.
My running back.
Yeah. Kenny, anything else on the bottom feeders in the SEC this week?
Your South Carolina doesn't have a running game?
Yeah.
Mario Anderson ran for 100 yards on 10 carries.
Only 10. They need to give him more carries then.
I mean, that's still good for only 10 carries. He ran for 100.
It is.
Yards. He had a 75-yard run too. I mean, that's what's eating up most of that.
I didn't look at the box score there, but I did see a lot of South Carolina fans the first few weeks complaining about it. I do follow a couple.
They could be frisky.
Maybe they found their guy. Oh, that Anderson. What was his name? Mario Anderson. Is that what it was?
Marion Anderson.
Mario Anderson.
He's
Anderson.
their Cody Schrader. He came from D2.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have a battle of D2 backs on homecoming for Mizzou. They could be I'd be a little worried about that. That could be a little trap game for Mizzou, them coming to town.
I think Mizzou is a lot better than South Carolina this year. Personally, Kentucky is the game I'm more worried about in that stretch.
That is a bet. That is also a they're growing on us, I think, or growing on Peyton. Kenny can call us all fools if they beat Mizzou by a bunch and Ray Davis runs all over the Tigers defense, but we'll see. That remains to be seen. All right. Any final tier list thoughts? Any names to add other than the 25 wide receivers? If someone can name them all in the comments, I'll give you $100. Don't look well. No, you could just cheat, but don't cheat. Never mind. It can't work in this day and age. All right. We'll end the show with that then. Hope everyone enjoyed. We'll have a preview of LSU for you guys on Friday. Dive into that. It'll be out on Thursday as well. Just that preview. Full show out Friday. And yeah, looking forward to it. 5-0 and ranked higher than the team that I think we've been very nervous about playing leading up to this season. So that's weird. But we'll talk about why they're still very, very good and dangerous to Mizzou's undefeated record and what Mizzou's got to do to overcome the Bayou Bengals. And with that, hope everyone enjoyed. And this has been The Unwritten Rule presented by Bet Online.